guys, that episode of Picture This a few weeks ago, I mean, that was a great episode, guys.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, he really kicked ass. What a great guest.
Yeah, oh, for sure. He did such a great job. Matt, you did such a great job.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you guys are so nice. I had the best time, and greatest guest host of all time. Gosh,
No one said that.
well, that's what I heard, and honestly, it's just an honor to be nominated.
Wait, nominated for what?
And the winner for Best Guest Host of all time is Matt Chapmond.
Oh my god! Oh my god! This is so unexpected. I never dreamed I would win this award. I have so many people to thank. I don't want to forget anyone. I wasn't prepared for this, but I want to thank the Academy. I want to thank my agent, Murph, who's always going out on a limb for me. My wife, Corey. My kids, Gavin, Liam, and Wesley. Chad, of course, for letting me be on the show in the first place. Wrap it up. Shit. Okay, I have to do this quickly. T-Bone, The Wizard, Michelle, Mark, Clay, Chris, Mike, Charles, my Uncle Mike, who showed me Dead Poet Society for the first time. My mom and sister, who are watching from above. Jumbo, Jimthony, Rat-a-tat-tat, Crispifer, Sergeant Silly Bones, Tito Boogie Shoes, Sickly Stew, and of course, last but not least, the one who without whom none of this would be possible, the very reason I was able to be on the show in the first place, my very good dog, Phoebe. Thank you.
What the hell was that? Did he say
dude,
Charles?
Dude, yeah, you couldn't mention me, like.
Look at that! It's time to frame wreck this.
The Iceman cometh.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to FRAMEWRECK, but also kind of Picture This. We're going to call it FRAMEWRECK This. We don't have a banner or anything for it, but it's FRAMEWRECK This. It is the culmination of this epic crossover event. We had Matt on Picture This with Chad and I, and now we're having Chad on FRAMEWRECK with Matt and I. So FRAMEWRECK This, worlds collide, and I'm not that upset that Matt left me out of his speech. Not that upset. Matt, how are you doing, Mr. Co-host?
I'm doing great. I'm excited about this. I had an incredible time on you guys' show talking about my favorite movie and some movies that I really loved. So, it was incredible. I'm so happy that you guys let me be on. Thank you very much. And I thought, what a better time to have Chad on than when we're talking about another award show, just a different one.
Yes, and he was part of the cold open, so I didn't want to kick him out of the stream and then bring him back on again. But let's just pretend Chad is hiding in the wings right now. And now introducing our guest for the episode. He's already here. It's Chad Webb, who is our co-host of Picture This, and of course, our first-time guest here on FRAMEWRECK. First of probably many times, because who doesn't love talking about some silly movies, don't we? Chad, how you doing?
Doing great. Actually, just did a peekaboo that I'm learning now to do with my child. But I did want to say, first of all, great blazer, Dylan.
Thanks.
The club.
It's the most prestigious episode of FRAMEWRECK we've ever had. So I needed to. I don't know. Matt had the very nice green. Was it overshirt? You have the blazer. I was like, I feel a little barren with just my little blue tee and Yankee hat. So I need to join the club.
No, but I mean, I'm very excited you guys wanted to have me on, and this is just a really fun concept that I was like, why didn't we think of doing something like this sooner? Because you have a whole Razzies, so many years that could be done. I don't know if we'll do this again, but I think this year that we're doing 2004, I think there's a lot of bad in there. So I'm excited to discuss it and see if anybody actually had any hot takes on these because
Yeah, and with the Razzies, we're covering the 2004 Razzies for anyone who didn't know, who didn't bother to look at the thumbnail, description, title, or our cold open. We're doing the 2005 Razzies for the films released in 2004. We're gonna kind of style it like Picture This, where we like kind of go through each film, talk about the awards a little bit beforehand, and then kind of at the end give some superlatives. So it's like a combination of Framework and Picture This, but it'll be fun to kind of discuss 5 films at once. The only other time we did that was with Twilight, and that was a pretty solid success, I'd say, Matt. We had a lot of people watching that live. So we're excited to talk about this from an awards lens, but from a very opposite awards lens than usual. Matt, are you excited for this little experiment?
I'm very excited. I had this idea a while back, mostly because I was jealous of you guys' show. And I was like, I gotta get on that show. And then I had the idea, like, what if we did a crossover or do the Razzies? And it took a little bit, but we eventually figured it out. And honestly, I really feel like I should go get my Blu-ray of The Room so I can hang it on my wall because you both have it in the background.
Okay. But Matt, you're in an actual room, so that counts.
That's true.
I got Matt's. Usually Matt's the funny one, but Matt laughed this time. That's great.
Oh man, there it is. I am in a room. Okay.
Let me announce the 5 films that we're covering today, just in case anyone wants to go watch them all and then come back. Spoiler alert: you'll be sitting through one of them for 3 hours, and the other one, good luck finding, unless you have a pretty good eBay or library account to access, or if you happen to just have a childhood copy DVD hanging around your house like this weirdo right here. Those 5 films are Alexander, Catwoman, Superbabies, Super Geniuses 2. I think I got that in the right order. Surviving Christmas and White Chicks. That's right. 5 films. One of them Matt and I have already covered on the show, but looking at it from the lens of the awards, because it was the worst picture at the Razzies, I think it's important to kind of talk about it in that context. And then 4 films we haven't discussed here. One from a director that we all have discussed very recently in 1989. One that I said is very hard to come by. One of them in a genre of film, or style of film. Christmas is a genre that we're all very fond of. Obviously, we're all in the Christmas draft, and then White Chicks. So we're gonna be talking about all of them. Where do we even begin, Matt?
Well, let's start talking about the 2 major awards that were won by Catwoman. They won Worst Picture, and it won Worst Actress. And Halle Berry was actually there to collect it. She actually showed up, and I don't know if you guys have seen the video. It's like 8 minutes long. She is a really good sport about it. And then toward the middle-ish, toward the endish, she gets really serious, talking about how her grandma told her, "Listen, if you can't accept criticism and roll with the criticism, then you don't deserve the praise." And so that's why she showed up and took it. There was also a really funny bit with Alex Borstein, who couldn't stop staring at her chest. But
I do remember that bit. I remember that bit. I will say, I really appreciate when an actor is able to kind of like laugh along with the fans, because she just won an Oscar for Best Actress 2 years ago before this. Like she was, her reputation was not at stake, and I kind of appreciate that she could kind of just go and, have a laugh at it. Because ultimately Razzies, and this is kind of like a bigger conversation that will segue us to all the 5 films, but talking about the Razzies in general, I mean, they don't matter. No, Oscars don't even matter, but it's just like, it's all subjective. But I think there's almost kind of a fun nature to, you know what, I got nominated for Razzie, I'm just going to own it and play along with the joke, and then I'll have a resurgence. I mean, Adam Sandler paid his dues for how many years before Uncut Gems came back, and then people finally started treating him like a real actor again. It happens in waves. I mean, Ben Affleck, another example of someone who literally won, I mean, he hasn't won an Oscar since, but his movie won Best Picture literally 8 years after this. So, like, I really don't think, you know, I appreciate those who are able to laugh at themselves and kind of be in on the joke, which is kind of what our show is. You know, it's like appreciating bad cinema and like, yes, acknowledging why it doesn't work at times, but also finding what makes that special in a way and kind of fun for audiences.
Right.
And I think Halle Berry really played into it well, which is good.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think that kind of the point you were making there, and that I think is a really good point about how we do our show, is that yes, we're talking about bad movies, but it's rare that we don't talk about a movie that we loved, even if we're talking about bad movies. For whatever reason we loved it, and that's really the point. Is like, were we entertained by it? Yes, we were. So that's really the point of that. I will say, while we're talking about the Razzies, real quick, there's a history of criticism against the Razzies. I will say that it is well-founded accusations of sexism and racism throughout their history. I would say that they, as an organization, just like the rest of us, they're getting better. That there was some of it's a product of the time, some of it's inexcusable, but just recently they decided we're no longer going to nominate child actors, which they should have done a long time ago, but at least they're showing that they are willing to change and grow. So
because every 6-year-old wants to find out they're the worst actor in America. Like, what the hell? Firestarter, poor girl. I was just gonna ask you, Chad, like, what are your stance on the Razzies? Because you don't cover bad movies a lot, obviously. You're a guest here, but what's your thought on the Razzies in general? Like, because we kind of talked about how Halle Berry herself was kind of like taking it like a champ, but the Razzies Association in general, do you think it's more like mean-spirited? Do you think they're in on the joke? Like, what's your stance on the Razzies as you see it?
Well, I haven't actually watched. I'm assuming they air this visually. I've
never seen it, but I've seen clips. But
I've only seen clips. I've never actually watched the ceremony. I think they put it on the internet.
Gotcha. That actually makes a lot of sense. It's not something that I would find myself watching, and I do think it's because I do look at it from a mean-spirited kind of way, and it's exactly like you guys are talking about, like where they have nominated child actors and then have felt bad about it and then been like, wait, we're actually doing damage here by someone just first getting their start and just a little kid, and we're going to trash them when they haven't even been in the game for that long. Right. And that could actually stunt their career and, make it harder for them to get jobs and stuff like that. But I think like even for like seasoned actors and stuff like that, I think sometimes it's just like coming from such a negative place that from my perspective, that it just feels more like, hey, we're making fun of this thing rather than discussing why it's bad and saying maybe this is how this could have been better or something like that. It doesn't really seem like film discussion rather than just dunking on someone. Whereas like something like FRAMEWRECK does something completely different where you guys kind of love on bad movies instead of making fun of things all the time.
I agree with that. And it's interesting because like, the mean-spiritedness, the cheap shots. I mean, we look at who won Best Actor this year was George Bush for Fahrenheit 9/11. Like they really were trying to be like, let's make a funny joke and give George Bush the award for Best Actor, like, or Worst Actor. It's like, it's just like one of those things where it's like, haha, okay, funny, whatever. So which is why, like, when I look back at the Razzies, I like to look at the movies selected to then kind of see, were they actually bad? Were they maybe entertainingly bad, or were they actually good? And that's kind of what we're going to do today. But the Razzies in general, I agree. It's like some of the cheap shots. I mean, the Wayans brothers both nominated for Worst Actress. Get it? Because they played girls. Like that kind of stuff. It's like, that's for a gimmick, and it's fine to acknowledge when something's bad. Like I don't think we should have no bad criticism out there, because what does the good criticism mean if there's also not bad stuff? Like, what makes a good movie good if everything's good? I think you need bad films to then make the good films even better. But I also think there's a way about talking about them, and kind of like what you said, Chad, about our show, like celebrating the bad films and what we find enjoyable about them. Maybe things that could have been corrected, but things we ultimately can laugh at in a good sense, rather than Halle Berry, and that's, I think, where the Razzies aren't exactly towing the line, at least back then. I think now, like Matt said, they're getting better, but still, it's like it's not something to be taken seriously like the Oscars, which is why we're going to be focusing more on the films than the ceremony itself. But
Right.
I digress. Matt?
I would like to just circle back to the George Bush winning best or worst actor.
Let's talk about it.
Just that. Well, I actually had an opposite take of you. I was about to make a point, and then you made the opposite of the point I was going to make, which was that I actually think that's one of the good things that they've done, which is that they Fahrenheit 9/11 wasn't nominated for worst anything or the movie itself because they acknowledged that it was a good film. They took because George W. Bush won worst actor. Donald Rumsfeld, I believe, won supporting worst.
And then
supporting
Britney
actor.
Spears was supporting actress.
Britney Spears was supporting actress, but Condoleezza Rice was nominated for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that it was because obviously they weren't acting in the sense that they were portraying a different character. They were bad actors in their actions were bad. And I assume that's maybe they were just going for the cheap joke, but as far as when I saw that, I was like, okay, respect. I respect that they made that point. So I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe I'm giving them more credit than they deserve. But
it is a good way to look at it as like a political dig to be like, look what you did. Yeah, but it's more so just like it kind of delegitimizes the whole like prestige of it, which I guess there is no prestige to it as is. But it's like when you get Halle Berry actually being recognized for how bad she actually is in that movie, which we'll talk about it. I don't think necessarily she's the worst actress of that year. We'll talk about it, but you know, she's being told you were the worst actress, and then George Bush, it's like, yeah, like you said, it's more about his actions than his act. It's more of an inconsistency for me, where I'm just like, okay, like, are we gonna make it a full comedy fest, or are we gonna like actually say this is bad and like let's talk about it and let's make it better? I don't know. That's just where I'm at, or like the inconsistency. And then like actors getting nominated for multiple things. Like Ben Stiller was up for like 10 films this year, but nominated as one. And one of them is Along Came Polly, which is amazing. I don't know why people are shitting on it. Maybe it's not amazing.
Philip Seymour Hoffman. I know we're not talking about good movies here, and we're not talking about this movie, but Philip Seymour Hoffman made my sister and I literally roll on the floor laughing. During Along Came Polly, we had to pause it because we couldn't breathe and we didn't know what was happening. We rewound it because that was the first time we'd ever heard the word shart.
No, this is serious. I just sharted.
I don't know what that means.
I tried to fart and a little shit came out. I just sharted.
Before he even explained it, we knew what he was saying, and oh my god, we laughed so hard.
So whose party is this again? It's an art opening for this Dutch guy, Joost. His art sucks, but he's some really good pot.
Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about.
We all have a Philip Seymour Hoffman in Along Came Polly story. Chad?
There was the one part when he's walking in on the court or whatever, is it the basketball court? Yeah. No, he's walking in like a full suit and he just slips and falls.
This man is in the house.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, and another great homage to musical theater is Jesus Christ Superstar when he's in his Judas pose, just standing there waiting for his entrance. Like literally, this movie, this character in this single movie. I know we'll get to the bad movies in a sec, but his single performance in Along Came Polly is the single most quoted performance in the Randazzo family household. No kidding.
Wow.
Ask my dad, ask my sister. It is the rain dance.
Let it rain. Rain dance.
Like every time we're playing basketball, it's rain dance, rain man, haymaker. Like everything is Philip Seymour Hoffman. I just sharted. Like the very under his breath. That's always quoted. The slipping, the falling, all of that it's so good. The the Jesus Christ Superstar. We always do that in my house.
What an actor.
Why should you want to know? Don't you mind about the future?
The best performance I think of 2004. And yes, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind came out that year, but I'd still go as far as to say Philip Seymour Hoffman is maybe a top 5 performance. Maybe not the best, but top 5 performance of that year in any category, I think.
We lost the treasure with Philip Seymour Hoffman. I need to rewatch that movie. I haven't seen it probably since 2004.
So the fact that that's a Razzie nominee, shame. Even if Ben Stiller's not the highlight, like he's still good in it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway. Let's talk about these movies, though.
This isn't a Long Came Polly cast.
What if it just became a Long Came Polly praisal episode? Any last words, though, on the Razzies or this Razzies in particular before we segue just into the films themselves? And I guess
I'm ready to talk about these.
All right.
Movies.
Well, let's talk about
Movies.
Alexander. Usually Chad is the one to kind of like break down who was in everything and who starred and everything, but he's a guest. We're not going to make him do all that book work. So Matt, do you have any lists of people who made it or people who are in it, or do you want me to take it away?
I'm gonna let you take it away because I knew that was part of your show and I forgot to prep it. So
Right, it's like one of those things like you're like, oh, I know Chad's gonna get around to it, but then you realize you're like, wait, this isn't Chad's show, so like we actually have to put in the work now to deliver this. So I'll do it. Alexander, directed by Oliver Stone, starring Colin Farrell, Angelina Jolie. I'm going in a different order than Chad usually does it, but I'm going to try my best. Starring Colin Farrell, Angelina Jolie, Val Kilmer, Anthony Hopkins, Jared Leto, Rosario Dawson, Christopher Plummer, Brian Blessed is in this thing. Who else is in this? That's all the big names I got right there. Written by Oliver Stone, Christopher Kyle, and Leda Kalogridis, based on Alexander the Great by Robin Lane Fox, cinematography by Rodrigo Prieto, edited. Do you do edited by or no? Just cinematography, Chad. Okay, cool. Music by Vangelis, Chariots of Fire, baby. Runtime, we don't do that. Okay, that's enough. The synopsis: it's about Alexander the Great, his rise, him going, learning, coming back, becoming a ruler. You know, the life of Alexander, told by Anthony Hopkins, and then flashback to Alexander. There's some incest, there's some gay stuff. We'll talk about it all. Chad, you're our guest. We'll let you start it. I mean, we know how you feel about Born on the 4th of July because you loved it last month. You know how I feel about JFK because I loved it in 91. So we've talked about Oliver Stone on Picture This, but what do you think about Oliver Stone's Alexander, Chad?
I mean, I thought it was fine. It's one of those where I'm not like a huge, this is like a sword and sandals kind of movie. I'm not like a huge fan of that like genre, just in general, subgenre in general. And I'm not huge into history either. So I'm not one to, sit there and go, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't seem accurate or anything like that. So it's just like, is the movie entertaining? And I found some of it to be entertaining. I did like the stuff between Colin Farrell and Jared Leto, like the kind of love story that they have in there, that kind of stuff. It seemed actually pretty progressive and like showing like we've had things like this, like homosexual love and stuff in the past. So I think that's actually kind of cool. But like really everything else, I don't really think is that great. I do not think it needed to be that long, but I feel like Oliver Stone is one that would probably say, since we're trying to tell this long story of Alexander, it has to fill a certain length to be this like big epic story. And also I don't know the whole story about it competing with Troy the same year, which I also hear is a bad movie, but maybe better than Alexander. At least that's the consensus, it seems like, which I haven't seen Troy. However, I don't think the execution was there. I don't think the story was there. Maybe there is a story there that's like really compelling, and maybe even better acted than a lot of these were able to do. I know my wife was like making fun of like going really hard on the hair and makeup, like the him having like the really fake blonde wig, and they didn't even bother to paint his eyebrows.
Yes.
Dye his eyebrows, stuff like that. So there's a lot of like really cringe stuff in it, but I feel like some of it was kind of interesting. So I don't want to say that I hate this movie. I don't want to say that I love this movie or even particularly liked it. I don't think I'll watch it again, but I thought some parts of it were interesting. I don't know. That's my overall take.
Yeah.
I have seen Troy and Alexander, and while I don't know that Troy is a better movie, it is a more watchable movie. That's where it wins in that case. There was actually almost Olympus Has Fallen, White House Down situation with this movie, because I remember when it was announced that Oliver Stone was making this movie, there was another movie where Leo was going to be playing Alexander the Great in a different movie, and they were both being made, or they were both in pre-production at the same time. And the idea was, well, maybe they're going to come out in the same year and have to compete against each other. But the Leo one never came to fruition.
That would have been awesome.
Yeah, that would have been great. But here's how I...
Because Alexander the Great. I don't even think you meant to say that. Do you make that
joke? I didn't. I wish I had. But okay, so there are... I've seen this movie twice now. Once when it first came out, and now. And I've only ever seen the theatrical version. What I will tell you about this is that there are clearly the bones of a good movie in this movie. And that makes me want to see some of the remakes. I believe on Picture This, I compared Oliver Stone to Ridley Scott in that they're kind of hit and miss, but they also are the same in that this has as many re-releases as Blade Runner. There's a director's cut, there's a ultimate cut, there's a final cut. Like it makes me want to watch that final cut of it to see what it looks like at that point, because I think they're the bones of a good movie in this movie. This is just not it. There's a lot that I liked about it. There's that scene where Alexander is giving his speech to his troops, which unfortunately, and I think this may have been to its detriment, it comes out the year after Return of the King, and we saw Aragorn give that incredible speech in front of his troops. Like, it's like, okay, so that's your detriment. However, what they did that I thought was great, and I know people who work in the tabletop role-playing game industry, and I messaged him. I was like, we need an ability like this. Basically, he was talking to his troops, and they cut to the enemy and showed that they could hear him, and a couple of them started looking a little uneasy. I thought that was a genius. I thought that was a great thing to show, a great take. And I said that I messaged my friend. I was like, we need to be able to inspire people and demoralize others. It doesn't matter. But I thought that was great. I think there's a lot in this. It's really great. I think there is some bad acting, there's some bad costuming, some bad story. I love Val Kilmer, so I can't say anything bad about him. But his character was... I don't know. I just did not enjoy him on screen. It's not his acting. If anybody nominates him for worst actor, we're going to have words. It wasn't his acting. It was what he was given.
Yeah. Well, you might have words with the Razzies because they nominated him. But it's interesting because like I was watching all these in kind of the context of like FRAMEWRECK and Razzies, and like, why is this considered one of the worst of the year? And not just in the sense where it's like, oh, this is a slog. Because usually when stuff is like a slog and kind of boring, it's like, that's not worth Razzie nominations. You know, that's just kind of like a failed Oscar bait, didn't amount to anything. But like, to be nominated for Razzie, it needs to have that extra something that like people can really kind of like latch onto as like the main criticism, to kind of like what Chad said, kind of like cheap shot. But I do think Alexander, it's... For me, it's like I think they didn't know what accents they had back then, so they just said, you know what, everyone pick a different one because one of you is gonna be right. But when that's the case, you get Colin Farrell doing his like kind of mumbly Irish thing that he does in all the McDonough movies. You know, it's like Alexander, but it's still kind of like this a little bit. And then you also get Angelina Jolie doing some weird like, kind of like a Gumad from Sopranos a little bit. And then you have Val Kilmer doing his thing. You have Jared Leto doing his thing. You have Anthony Hopkins doing like the old Shakespearean. Like everything's so all over the place in the accents. It's the inconsistencies, kind of like what we talked about the costumes and stuff. That's where I kind of like saw it in a FRAMEWRECK lens, because every time someone spoke, I was just laughing because it was just so inconsistent. And then like, oh my God, the sex scenes are so, I mean, it was just very excessive, and the incest, and like there's not like a firm like it's incest, but like it's one of those implied things where it's like Angelina Jolie and Colin Farrell, way too much sexual chemistry for mother and son. And I just think, you know, the Jared Leto stuff, yes, it's progressive to see in a story like this and an era like this that they're including those themes, but also like I feel like this is still a 2000s version of like, well, we're still not gonna like commit fully to it. It's almost going to be like an implied thing because we don't want to piss people off. But I did find that element interesting, but it's also like, I just don't know what story they were trying to tell. I mean, they're trying to tell his life story, but it's like, what? The best biopics focus on a singular thing and then can also tell other things as well. But like, there's a singular theme missing that I don't think Alexander has. It's just kind of like, these are all the people he was with, and this is all the things he did. But like, there's no consistent theme, I don't think, to where like, yeah, I'm with y'all where like, I wouldn't say this is like a so bad it's good movie, but I don't think it's a good movie. But I also don't think it's a really like a bad movie. It's like competent. I think it's competently made. I mean, like, it looks like some of the interesting camera work. I know it's very early 2000s, but some of the slow-mo at the end where just everything becomes red all of a sudden. I was like, this is random, but like, I like it. It's an interesting choice. The elephants, it's also very Return of the King, but I don't know. It's one of those weird hodgepodges, and especially having watched Oliver Stone's JFK and Born on the 4th of July, it just doesn't feel Oliver Stoney at all. You know, because his whole thing is like trying to look at an American truth and say, but that's not the whole truth. And, you know, that's what he did with JFK. That's what he did with Born on the 4th of July. And I feel like here it's like, he's not really doing that. He's just kind of telling the story. And maybe the whole truth is that, oh, he was gay, but that's a very minor subplot that kind of kicks in halfway through, gets forgotten about, and then comes back. You know what I mean? Like, there's no real like thing he's trying to like conspiracize, you know?
I will say this because you mentioned the incest and the homosexuality, but they are implied, like they're so implied that it's like a grandma who is not catching on that her grandson's gay. Like, oh, he's just really good friends. Like, there's enough deniability in this movie that a person could walk away from this going, gosh, that Colin Farrell and Jared Leto were such good friends in that movie. Like, because it doesn't commit, and that's one of my issues with it, is like, at no point, like, I know it's 2004, but like, let's get an obvious, blatant on-screen romance scene with these two. Like, let's make it a little hot, you know? Make it as hot as you made it with Angelina Jolie and him earlier without anything happening.
Because the Jared Leto relationship's not as problematic as the Angelina Jolie one, but the Angelina Jolie one's the one they try to steam up, and it's like, no, don't do that. Ew, do that.
Right? Yeah, make this one hot and not weird and kind of, I don't know, confusing every once in a while. I will say that that I appreciate that they tried something with that. They just did not commit enough. Before I tell this story, Dylan, say the thing you told us about Anthony Hopkins in this movie. Do you remember what you texted us about Anthony Hopkins?
Oh, yeah. It was something along the lines of like, I think he's aging back. He's Benjamin Buttoning himself because this man looks older than he's ever looked in this movie. And this is in 2004. This is 13 years after Silence of the Lambs. All right. Like, this is not the father. You know, this is closer to the Lambs than the father, but he looks so old. I don't know if it's just the standing out in the hot sun in that horrible wig. Maybe it just caught to him. I don't know, but I was worried. I was like, get him some water. I was like,
yeah, you were like, how does 2004 Anthony Hopkins look older than 2023 Anthony Hopkins? And you were right. He does not look great in this. I'll also say that before I tell this little anecdote about this movie, I will say that I know this is just fan service, but if you can do fan service for Alexander the Great, I mean, that's a pretty fine line, a pretty limited pool you could do this. If there was at no point a point where Alexander wept as he looked over his the nations he conquered because there was nothing left to conquer. Like, that's an old adage. That's an old.
Yeah. Isn't that what Anthony Hopkins says in the beginning? Doesn't he like say? Did he say that in?
Does he say it? I don't remember.
Well, but
I don't know. What I know is that like they didn't have a scene. Like, it's like that kind of feels like the thing everybody's waiting for. If we know anything about Alexander, it's that Alexander wept because there were no more worlds to conquer. Like, that's the thing we know about him, and they didn't show it, which is fine. It's kind of like my critique of Battleship, where at no point did anybody say, you sunk my battleship. And for that reason, they didn't. You could tell they didn't understand the property or what they were making. Like that's kind of how this feels. It's like, okay, there's such a limited amount of fan service you could do with this character, and you have to do this one, and you didn't do it, and that's weird. Okay, so I worked at a video store for 8 years. I was the manager by the time video stores shut down. When this movie came out in 2004 on DVD or 2005, whatever time frame it came out, actually on DVD, it was on we had a screener that played. It was like a ranged from anywhere from an hour and a half to 3 hour stretch of trailers and clips from movies and stuff like that. In music videos that would play on the TVs in the video store throughout. When this movie came out, they played the Alexander trailer about 3 times per cycle. So every about hour, I heard this trailer, and it has one of the worst line deliveries that I've ever heard. And for some reason, they put it in the trailer, and it makes me laugh when I see it in the movie, and it made me laugh when I saw it here. And that's when Jonathan Rhys-Meyers says, "Alexander, be reasonable."
That was my quote. I wrote it down.
Oh, is it?
I didn't know if we had superlatives or not for these. I forgot, so I was like, I'll write down a quote or two that I found memorable, and that was just so funny. It's very
that
calm.
I heard that line once an hour every day that I worked for the entire duration of and it just stuck in my head. So it will always have this place. This movie will always have that spot in my brain where I can hear Jonathan Rhys-Meyers giving just the campiest line delivery. Not that I've ever heard. We've done this show enough that I've heard campier line delivery, but in a movie seemingly this prestigious that I've ever heard. So
I just think the movie needs a little more camp. That's what it is. It's like it needs more camp to be the so bad it's good, but it doesn't have enough good stuff to be just good. You know what?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it did have that like last scene that was kind of like a what the fuck is going on right now, where it's like a different color and like despite it just kind of like descends into this like madness there.
Yeah, I wish the whole film had been like that. Like give me the reds and the elephants like all the time, and maybe it would have been. Chad, are there any like dialogue moments that stuck out to you, or any like very memorable moments? You said the wigs and then the elephants and the ending and all that, but are there any other moments that like stand out to you as maybe like so bad it's good, or at least memorable enough? Or
not really as far as that. Like I don't think I watched it on like that level. I'll say right now, like I approached a lot of these as trying to as like a redemption kind of a way of watching it, because I know on one level you have people saying these are the worst of this one year, and then you're kind of like, well, okay, so I know that, so there's probably things that aren't that great in them, but now I'm watching this, I don't know, almost 20 years actually later, and then it's like, you know, I'm gonna watch them with hey, maybe there's something that's not that bad in them. But like this one, I just think like really bored me overall. And I kind of wished I would have watched it from that perspective, so I would have seen a lot of those really funny lines. But I'm not a frame wreck expert.
No, it's fine. And I think that's what's interesting too, is because a lot of films with time become maybe cult classics that are kind of reappraised, like you kind of mentioned, or they're just like movies that are forgotten about. But very few times will you get movies that are like The Room, where it's like, yes, it's very bad, yes, the Razzies recognize it, but it's also like the most entertaining thing you've ever seen. Like I think a lot of the movies kind of teeter on it's bad, but like it's not the best bad thing I've ever seen, but it's also not good, you know. So it's gonna be interesting to go through these, but I think Alexander is one of the ones where it's just kind of like it's not that good, but it's not so bad it's good, I don't think.
Right. If I can give it one more compliment real quick, I thought the sets were really cool. Unfortunately, some of them blended in a lot. Like when they would go to a city, it didn't really look that much different than a different city. However, those cities looked really cool on the inside. Like when you would go into them, like you really kind of felt that time period a little bit, and you're like, okay, so you kind of got a feeling for what it's like, something you've only ever tried to imagine. You're now seeing in a movie. Like, I thought that was pretty cool, but a lot of it did feel samey after a while. So
there you go. All right, is there any other business, Matt, that we have to get to with this, or can we proceed?
we can proceed.
Cool. So Alexander nominated for 6 Razzies. I'll make it easy. There's only one film that we're going to talk about today that won any Razzies. So I'll just tell you right now, Alexander won 0 Razzies, which is, I guess, a good thing. But it was nominated for 6. It was nominated for Worst Picture, Worst Actor for Colin Farrell, Worst Actress for Angelina Jolie. She was nominated for this and Taking Lives as like one nomination. Worst Supporting Actor for Val Kilmer, Matt, go get him. Worst Director for Oliver Stone, and Worst Screenplay. You know what? I think Alexander would have been even greater if he had some real stellar cat-like reflexes and a nice tight leather suit, right, Matt? Right, Chad?
Yes.
No, I don't know.
Sure.
No, yes, they would have.
Let's talk about Catwoman. I don't know. Let's talk about Catwoman, directed by Pitoff. That's it, Pitoff. Is that, am I pronouncing that right? Pitoff?
Yep.
That's
All
it.
right, cool. Otherwise known as Jean-Christopher Pitoff Komar. Cinematography, story by Teresa Rebeck, John Brancato, and Michael Ferris. Screenplay by John Brancato, Michael Ferris, and then John Rogers. Based on Catwoman by Bill Finger and Bob Kane. Music by Klaus Bedelt. Edited by, we don't do it edited. Cinematography by Terry Arbogast. I'll do edit anyway because it's right here. Sylvie Landra, and starring Halle Berry, Benjamin Bratt, Sharon Stone, Lambert Wilson, Francis Conroy, Alex Borstein, and some other people, and a photograph of Michelle Pfeiffer, which I just found out on Wikipedia just now. All right. So Matt and I have already talked about this film before, right, Matt?
Yes, I think, and I don't have a whole lot to add, but I'll be glad to get Chad's take and get in conversation about it. I will say that mentioning editing on this is good. It's good to because the editing is just so bad in this movie. So let's. I would love to hear from Chad though.
Yes.
See how
we'll hear about Chad because our thoughts are out there, but I want to hear Chad's thoughts because I don't know if Chad, if this is a first watch for you, if you're seen this again. I mean, I know you love cats. So I don't, or not the movie cat, but like animal cats, like real cats. You might like the movie Cats. I don't know, no judgment there. But you know, okay. But what did you think of Catwoman?
Yeah, I mean, it's just this was a first watch, like overall. Like I've seen clips throughout the times through osmosis and all that stuff, but you know, just like kind of hearing about the movie, how bad it is, you know, all that stuff. I'm like, this movie can't be like that bad. Like, there's got to be some redeeming stuff in it. And I know you're laughing because I mean it is just pretty bad.
Yeah.
The thing about it is, yeah, like it's one of those where it really feels its age. Like I'll say, like even Alexander felt like a little more put together because it was done by Oliver Stone, even though it kind of missed the mark in a lot of ways. I feel like Catwoman didn't even feel like a well put together movie. Like it took all of the all of the bad things from the early 2000s movies that other filmmakers use that you can kind of like go shrug at. Like when we did covered Gangs of New York,
Right, the slow-mo and
a lot of the
music.
yes, a lot of that type of stuff that you're like, okay, well, this is still a Scorsese film. It's still good, but you know, some of that stuff is dated, and that felt like this movie most of the time. It just felt like just the way it looked was bad, acted was bad. It barely felt like a movie at times.
Yeah.
It felt like the actors weren't really even performing. Like Alex Borstein, I don't know what was going on with her or any of these people in the company really. And then like the other thing too is like, well, with a movie like this, because they're also getting the character, I think, really wrong, and they're not doing anything new or interesting with the character, like how they did with Venom. Like Venom is the same type of movie where you're taking one character from a specific superhero franchise, focusing on them, and you're like, you know, well, is there anything interesting with this? Like not even bringing in Spider-Man. It's still fun. There's a lot of great stuff in that movie because you have Tom Hardy doing a great job, and Halle Berry, great actress. I don't think she really does anything with it. And you want to see at least a lot of really cool action sequences. If you can get that down, I think you can at least have a fun movie to watch. Like, I mean, that's why a lot of the Fast and the Furious movies aren't well written, but they're watchable.
Right.
Because they're fun. There's a lot of stuff in them that you're like, that doesn't make any sense, but it's fun. It's well put together as an action movie. But like, just like what Matt was talking about with the editing, when you have like someone throwing someone and just doing like a quick little fight scene, and you have like 30 cuts in that one little thing, like someone being thrown, and there's 30 cuts showing them being thrown, and you're just like, it's headache inducing. It's just not fun to watch, and a lot of it's very campy. I don't know. It's
true. But the word you hit on was campy too, because it's like it's so awful, but like when I watch it, at least I'm like, I can't take my eyes off of it. I'm like, what? It's almost like, you know, when you see a car on fire on the side of the road, you have to pull over and look. It's like, it's sad, but it's also like, I can't not watch it. I mean, you said Alex Borstein. Like, I mean, my favorite quote, I'll bring it back again because I have it written down from the last time we did it. When he says his name, Detective Lone, Tom Lone, she goes, God, that's such a good name. Tom Lone rhymes with cone, bone, phone. Not that rhyming is all that important. I must be in my cubicle alone. Like, no person on earth talks like that. Pulls out the little Dr. Seuss improv on you. Like, that just... Chad, that's great. It rhymes with Chad, sad, bad, glad, had. I'm gonna go sit in my chair now. Like that's not what we're doing. I just think it's so funny. And you're right. Like the editing's all over the place, but like it does have that dated feel. The basketball scene is like one that everyone talks about because it's just so bad and cringe. But for me, it's like it is more entertaining. Like kind of so bad it's good because I'm like, wow, like I love watching it because it's so bad, but like I do love watching it. It's entertaining for me. Like I was not bored by it, let's just say. And it's interesting because like cats, I like cats, but like the cats are creepy as hell in this too. Like the CGI cats when they like walk up to her when she's lying on the beach, and it's crazy. But Matt, have your thoughts changed at all on this, or are they the same?
No, they're pretty much the same. I agree with you. I enjoy watching this movie. I've seen it too many times now, just for having to cover it and just living life with it. I've seen it too many times, but I do enjoy. I just enjoy it. It's just a funny movie, and it's fun, and it has all the makings of. It has everything we love from a FRAMEWRECK movie, which is like. It's trying to be much more serious than it is. Like it's taking itself more seriously than it should.
They think her strutting on that rooftop, that iconic shot, like they think is the coolest thing ever, and it's just not.
And they think that her rubbing catnip all over her face in some weird impulsive like manic moment is, I don't know, not weird and off-putting. I love it. We talk about editing and the shots and the different, and like so many shots in this movie, and for all of the scenes and frame, like just so many frames of film. But I want to circle back, and I know we talked about this on our episode of this, but I just want to revisit because it brings me so much joy. The scene where Sharon Stone is falling out of the thing. And
was that our FRAMEWRECK moment last time?
That was our FRAMEWRECK moment because
she's like a rag doll.
She's falling out of the thing, and at first she's falling just normally. And then she's like suddenly, it's like she's a doll going end over end, and then it cuts away and cuts back, and then she's like, I don't know. It's like she's base jumping and then suddenly just ragdolling all the way down and then back to base jumping. It's very funny, and it makes me laugh.
There was a game when I was a kid that like you could play that was like kind of you just like threw a guy and he would just like tumble and like hit a bunch of stuff, and it was like that. I forget the name of the game, but there was a level where it was like the Titanic and it was like sunken, and you just throw them and then you see how much stuff you can bounce off of. It's kind of a morbid game now that I think about it, but 10-year-old me liked it. But yeah, like that's what that reminds me of. Yeah, I mean, Sharon Stone's so bad in this. I feel bad too because she's a good actress, but I just this is not her thing.
No.
Chad, did you say you liked Halle Berry in this or no? Because because that was like the one thing where we were kind of like last time Matt and I were like, I don't think she was necessarily the worst like ever. Like she took what she had and tried, but I don't know if it's the best. Like she wins worst actress for this. So like putting that in that perspective, like how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I if there's anything that I actually did like about the movie, I would say it is Halle Berry, because particularly, she's probably the worst to portray the character, but I
Right.
feel like actually doing the beats that a Catwoman or not Selena Kyle, but Patience in this case, she does the whole kind of the same effect of you see a lot of villains do with Jamie Foxx and Amazing Spider-Man 2 and stuff like that, where it's kind of like a nerdy reserved character turning into something like badass and
Right.
cool or sexy or something like that. And in this case, cool and sexy is what she does. I like that transition that she does from one to the next. It's nowhere near as awesome
Right.
as Michelle Pfeiffer and Batman Returns, but she tries, and for that, and also because she's working against so many other bad performances, I feel like it elevates hers a little bit. So I wouldn't say she's nearly the worst thing in the movie.
Yeah.
I thought I was done talking about this movie and I was ready to move on, and then Chad reminded me that her name was Patience, which reminded me that okay, so they're so bad at adapting to making a comic book adaptation. They're so bad at that in every other aspect, but the most egregious is that they gave her a name that first and last name that both started with a P but make different sounds. Patience Phillips. That's not how you do it. It's supposed to be alliteration, and that's not how that works. And it just upsets me.
Maybe the parents thought it was supposed to be. Maybe their last name is Phillips, but they didn't want to like tell their daughter like, "Sorry, you're pronouncing it wrong," so they just let her keep it. I don't know. Patience Phillips, or maybe it was Patience Phillips. I don't know. But you're right.
Patience Phillips. I love that.
And again, I'll bring up Matt's worst line, which I also have written down last time. I just have to say it: White Russian, no ice, no vodka. Hold the Kahlua. It's just milk. I don't know. That line I get a kick out of.
Oh my god!
I don't know.
It's oh my
so
god!
bad, but it's so funny. I mean,
That's kind of awesome, though. Actually,
isn't it? Like,
it's
awesome.
She's
It's
a
so
cat.
awesome. Yes, exactly. But like, no human being would ever like. If I walked into a bar, I'd just say, "Can you get me milk?" Like, but the fact that she like makes it this sexy lot, it's perfect. Matt,
I think
Chad, yeah.
Just one thing to interject. Apparently, milk makes cats sick, so don't feed them milk.
it's
shit,
it's lactose. The cream doesn't have the lactose in it.
I mean, I don't have a
Something
cat,
like
but
that.
that's good to know because if
I
I
don't know.
stumble upon
There's
a cat that I
there's
need
something that you can
feed
give
water.
them.
Yeah.
But okay, so I think that line, and I think this is the reason that it was our worst line. I think that line perfectly encapsulates everything wrong with this movie. It takes up way too much time with bullshit that doesn't matter.
Yes.
And to get to a joke that's not very funny.
Right, but it's still a cat, and that's the whole point. It's at the end of the day, it's still a cat, and you have to keep referencing the fact that she's a cat. If you forgot she was a cat, she will lick her paws to remind you, or lick her hands, I guess.
One more quick thing, though.
Yeah.
And now that I thought about this when I was watching Catwoman, but why, like in every single one of these movies, when you have Catwoman, you have Venom, they always have the whole thing where they're pissed off at their neighbor, and their neighbor's being really loud with their music, and then they at one point they just go like, I'm not going to deal with it because I don't like confrontation. And then when they're badass or sexy, then they take care of business and they scare them or something.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a retired trope. It's a tire trope, I should say. So Catwoman, I mean, it cleans house. It wins 4 out of 7 Razzies. It wins Worst Picture, Worst Director for Pitoff, Worst Actress for Halle Berry, and Worst Screenplay. It's nominated for Worst Supporting Actor for Lambert Wilson, Worst Supporting Actress for Sharon Stone, Worst Screen Couple for here you go. Ready? Halle Berry, and either Benjamin Bratt or Sharon Stone. That's how it was written. Worst on-screen couple. Interesting. But I mean, there's really no way to segue from kittens. You know what Chad has? He has cats and a baby. So let's talk about Superbabies, Baby Geniuses 2. Directed by the late, great Bob Clark of Christmas Story and Black Christmas fame. Cinematography by Maher Mallah, edited by Stan Cole, music by Helmut Zerett and Paul Zaza, screenplay by Gregory Poppin, story by Stephen Paul, starring John Voight, Scott Baio, Vanessa Angel, Peter Wingfield, Justin Chatwin, and a whole bunch of babies, mainly twin babies, because they did the whole Michelle Tanner thing, they double cast them, the Sprouse twin thing, because child labor laws, they have to have, limited hours for these amazing world-class actors, you know what I mean? Especially with all the mouths moving. Bob Clark, very sadly, this is his last film he directed before he passed away, which is a real downer to go out that way, and to go out in such a tragic, sudden way. He would die in a car accident, which makes it, I think, even worse. God, legacy cut short. He had so much more in him, but I am the only one who's seen this one before, I think, right? Because it's impossible to get your hands on. I mean, we all did, but it was a DVD that I had as a kid. I don't know what my mom and dad were thinking, but maybe they weren't. Maybe they didn't know. Maybe they didn't know.
As someone who worked at a video store when this came out, I can tell you exactly what I was thinking. 99 cents? Heck yeah.
Maybe
that's what your mom was thinking.
Maybe that's what it was. I remember as a kid hating it, being like, this is awful. But I was also a kid, so I wasn't like a baby. So maybe I was like, oh, this is for babies. Not me. I'm a kid. I'm old enough. I don't need to watch this. And then I watched this as an adult, and I'm like, this isn't even for babies. This is just like bad. But maybe it's good. Maybe it's so bad it's good. We'll find out in a sec. But I did want to throw it over to Chad again, just because you are now a parent of a small baby now. Did you like this one because you have that relatability now? And then I'll throw it over to Matt after that, having had babies who are now more grown kids. Like, how does having kids affect your view of Superbabies? Does it make it cuter? Because for me, I just wanted to gouge my eyes and yours out, but I'd like to know.
Well, I mean, I don't really think it affected it that much. I know because I didn't want to watch this one without watching the original one first, because I had seen the original one when I was 9, and I remember liking it, like having like nostalgia for it as a kid, the original Baby Geniuses, but I had never seen the sequel. So I decided that I wanted to watch the first one and then the second one. And I remember there's like one part in the first one when there's a first one and the second one, and I remember
is Elliot calling out to you? Is he saying, Dad, this is the baby movie, let me in? No,
I have ninja skills now.
But I remember like there were in the first one, there were some like legitimate like dramatic moments that made my wife sad, but not in a like negative, this is a bad movie way, right. But so I feel like the first one is a little bit more put together, even though there's so much campy stuff in it, and it's very, very weird. It's so strange because this is a Bob Clark movie, and I think if anyone watched like these first, not knowing anything about him, they might have like a negative opinion. But he's like kind of like a godfather of horror. Even before the original Halloween came out, the dude made Black Christmas, which was like, a landmark film. So, and then
I guess this is a horror film in one way or another, I guess.
Christmas Story is one of the most, popular Christmas movies of all time. And that has some horror elements in it as well. So, I think it's just very interesting. I feel like, the family Christmas, kind of elements do play throughout these, but honestly, I feel like this one is kind of teetering towards a so bad it's good kind of thing, because it is so like balls to the wall insane. The babies all getting random superpowers, and one of them is like a bouncing baby, and I bounce my baby a lot, and then I'll sit there and I'll go, bouncy boy. And there's a bouncy baby in the movie. So, I do kind of, I guess, have a little bit of a relatability with it. But yeah, it's a really interesting watch. I'll let you guys talk now.
No, yeah, I mean, yeah, I want to ask you, Matt, too, because I'm not around babies as much. Was my point earlier. So I'd love to get your perspective, because as someone who's not around babies as much, this was a little bit more grating to me. But I love babies, so maybe it's not. But I don't know. I'm with you, Chad. I think it's like the closest. Maybe not the closest, but it is very so bad it's good in the way that like it's bad and I think it's awful. But like I very much want to watch people watch this. Like I think that's the best way to qualify a so bad it's good movie. It's like, this is awful, let's sit down and watch it. I need to see your reaction. That's kind of what I feel about this. Like I need to hear your reactions, because like there's no movies like this. Matt, what's your reaction?
I having a baby has no bearing on this, because these children don't act like babies. They're not babies, they're toddlers that they're pretending are babies. Mm-hmm. They're treating them like they're much, much younger than those children are in the movie. But that's how they do it. There's nothing about having kids that prepares you for what happens in this movie. I will tell you, my 4-year-old loved it. He loved this movie. He was laughing. He really likes movies with babies in it. You guys know, I watched Matilda about 20 times the first week that it came out, Matilda the musical. Mm-hmm. And part of that is because my 4-year-old, who was 3 at the time, kept asking to watch the baby movie, which was the one that starts with the babies singing. So he loves babies. He loves watching movies with babies. But he loved it. He was laughing. He was having a good time. He didn't stick around the whole time, but he rarely does. But he was having a good time. My wife and I were just flabbergasted by what was happening on the screen. We were trying to follow the plot, but there was just so little to follow. There was, and any of it that you could follow just was laughably.
Oh, but Matt, there's a twist. John Voight is the baby's older brother. It's a boss baby thing.
They telegraph that so hard. You could barely count that as a twist.
Wait, the kid that we saw in the flashback with an accent is the villain with an accent? What?
And then he becomes a baby, doesn't he?
Yes. But with his full man voice, and we'll talk about that in a sec, because I have thoughts on that.
I don't know. This movie, it is so bad it's good, because I got so much enjoyment out of every ounce of enjoyment I got out of this movie was how funny the failures were, and that's really where you really hit pay dirt with a so bad it's good, is that the failures are the best parts, and the failures in this movie were just so sweet and so hilarious, and there was a bouncing baby, and there were baby superheroes who get their powers and then do nothing and then have them taken away for like most of the movie. You spend most of the movie without the powers, and it would be cool if something interesting happened during that time they didn't have powers, but no, nothing interesting happens during that time that they have no powers. It's just a bad movie.
What, you didn't love the side plot of the babysitter? Who?
I mean, no. And
I'm kidding.
The irresponsible babysitter who was just allowing this to happen. The only good thing was I got to say, hey, Justin Chatwin's in this. What the heck?
Right.
And that's about it.
I'll talk. The superhero-ness, yes, they get to take it away, but from the very get-go, there's this otherworldly kind of superhero element. Not superhero, but super, what's the fantastical element of the fact that the babies can talk. And I did a lot of research into this because I was perplexed. I was like, so was the original intention, because it's all CGI mouths, which is in itself very uncanny valley, very weird. Either get kids, if you're going to cast kids that are not real babies, and cast kids that can at least say the lines and then just have them do it, but having actual toddlers mouthing some of the twins, which don't look like one another, especially the lead kid, what's his name? The main one, Kahuna, which is also another interesting name. Kahuna, is played by 3 kids, triplets, and they all don't look like each other. It's like Sword of the Stone, how all the voice actors change. I could very well tell, oh, that's brother 1, brother 2, brother 3. But then they have Kahuna as well. Not even talking, they have these CGI mouths going, but then their voices are still young kids. My question is, would this movie be better? A, if it was animated, which that's not the answer, because it would have actually probably been better, and that would have made it worse, essentially. Or if we had adult comedians voice the babies. And I looked, and in the first Baby Geniuses, that was originally the plan. But then it became so weird that they decided to go with kids voicing the babies. But I really think it would be funnier if, like, voice opens and it's Kevin Hart. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what made, like, Boss Baby kind of so appealing for some people, is it was, like, Alec Baldwin's voice in this little baby body. And I'm just trying to think, like, that might have been even funnier if you had real voice actors, like adult voice actors in those roles. I'm not sure, but I think the whole mouths thing is creepy enough as is, to where, like, the rest of the film doesn't matter if it has a plot. That is always going to be weird for me, you know, to see another voice coming out of a different mouth for a different baby. I don't know. Chad, you look.
Quick question, and Matt actually might be able to answer this. How did they do it in Look Who's Talking?
I was about to say, because I was about to say that Dylan, you may be too young to remember Look Who's Talking, where Bruce Willis played the voice of Mikey the baby.
That's right.
Yeah. So I just had an
Look Who's
amazing
Talking,
idea.
they
I didn't know that it was already taken.
There was no
And
mouth.
Look Who's Talking was all internal, so they didn't do the mouth.
Like Homeward Bound kind of a deal.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
the dog. Dog's Journey, all those movies.
And then
Yeah,
in Look Who's Talking 2, where Roseanne Barr played the sister, it was they spoke mentally. They didn't actually speak to each other. So
yeah. Okay, interesting. But would that have made it better, or do we like the choices of the mouths on the babies? Is it creepy to y'all, or is it just me?
It's very creepy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
there are a couple kids who seem to be trying to mouth along with the words. Like maybe they were the kids who were hired for their talent in that area.
And I'll say the kids are very cute. I mean, what's his name? Little what's it? Finkelman? I mean, adorable. Finkelman's a bro. Like, he's my favorite. I love the line. I wrote it down where he says, "I'm very connected to my feminine side." I mean, like, it's just such a weird, silly line for a baby to be saying. It's like things like that. Like, I think if they leaned into the whole, like, babies talking like adults, like actually talking like adults, I think it would have worked. And I'm giving a lot of praise to Boss Baby, but I think Boss Baby kind of, like, fixes a lot of what's wrong here in the premise. Because I think there is some sort of premise here that could work, especially with superheroes. Like, maybe this should have been animated, because, like, that's kind of a cool concept. These babies get superpowers. It's a very sellable concept. It's just the execution is not there, you know?
Yeah, I think if it were animated, or if they actually did something like Look Who's Talking, where they didn't have the weird mouth thing going on, they didn't have the crazy CGI, like bouncing baby, bouncing back and just knocking people out and shit, and all this crazy stuff, I feel like it would probably still have been a bad movie because of the plot and stuff like that. But I feel like having a lot of that stuff it's not on the Room level, but like, I think it approaches it because of all that weird, crazy shit that you're just like, wait, why would they make that choice? That's insane.
Right.
So I think it would, if they would have fixed a lot of that stuff or made it animated, I think it would have been
just bad.
Better,
Instead
but
of
worse.
bad is good. Right, exactly. By improving it would have been making it worse. Yeah,
That's
it's
what
like
I was about to say.
if you make The Room on one camera, it's a worse movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, any improvements to this movie make it much worse unless you scrap the whole thing and do it completely different, and then it's no longer this movie. So no, don't improve this movie, because that's much worse. If it was competently made in any way, which I feel bad about saying that about a Bob Clark movie, but if it were competently made at all, it would be much worse movie.
I mean, it probably was like, I don't know, just he probably didn't care about it, because honestly, if he cared about it, I think it would have been incredible, or at least better, because a Bob Clark movie where he cares, it's usually amazing. So there you go.
Right, there you go. Superbabies nominated for only 4. Surprisingly, I think it could have gotten a few more. Didn't win any. Not the worst of the year according to the Razzies. It was nominated for Worst Picture. John Voight was nominated for Worst Supporting Actor. Bob Clark was nominated for Worst Director, and it was nominated for Worst Screenplay. We mentioned Bob Clark because, he's made a bunch of Christmas films. But did he make Surviving Christmas? No. But he did survive making his Christmas movies. But let's talk about Surviving Christmas, why don't we? And this is where I would normally turn it to Chad, but I'm doing it tonight, so let me click on it. There we go. Directed by Mike Mitchell, Surviving Christmas, directed by Mike Mitchell. Screenplay by Harry Elfont, Deborah, I almost said Deborah, Deborah Kaplan, Jennifer Ventimiglia, Joshua Sternin, story by Harry Elfont and Deborah Kaplan. Cinematography by Peter Lyons Collister and Tom Priestley Jr., edited by Craig McKay. Music by Randy Edelman, and starring Ben Affleck, James Gandolfini, Christina Applegate, Catherine O'Hara, Josh Zuckerman, Bill Macy, Jennifer Morrison, Udo Kier, Stephen Root, and I have to shout him out. He's in one scene, but Phil Lewis, Mr. Mosby, Sue Levinson and Cody. And Tom Kenny, SpongeBob, is the man rapping gift. That's his credit. Matt, you wanted to talk about this first, and I think I know why,
did.
but tell us about Surviving Christmas.
Well, first of all, I saw you had tweeted a while back about a movie with Tony Soprano and.
Oh yeah, I never thought I'd ever see Mr. Mosby, Tony Soprano, Ben Affleck, and the mom from Schitt's Creek all at one table together. That was my tweet.
And I was very confused. I was like, Josh Radnor is in this movie, and who is Mr. Mosby? And I was like, I know the actor that was on screen, but I was like, I don't know what he. And then when you just said the Sweet Life of Zach,
you know how
like,
you made me feel young with Look Who's Talking. I just made you feel old with Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. So we're even now.
Exactly. So that makes sense. Yeah, I think you know why. This is a good movie. I don't understand why this was nominated for Worst Picture. It's a legit, in my opinion, a legitimately good movie. I understand that it's not well loved and it didn't get the greatest reviews at the time. But I saw it when it came out. I'm pretty sure I took it over to my mom's house like the next day and watched it again. And I really like this movie. It's funny. It makes me laugh still to this day. I was watching it and was surprised at how often I actually laughed at the movie. I think that it gets the Bennifer backlash from Bennifer round one, where basically anything they touched at that time was getting shit on. Jersey Girl also got that same treatment, even though I think that's a good movie. And not just because of Kevin Smith, I think it's a legitimately good movie, but it gets shit on. Geely, on the other hand, is a bad movie, and they got that right when they shit on that one. But I think that Ben Affleck, I think Ben Affleck movies got too bad a rap, and I think this is a casualty of that. It's a funny movie. It makes me laugh. Catherine O'Hara, James Gandolfini are incredible in it. Ben Affleck's great in it. I just really enjoy this movie. I'm glad we revisited it because it's now going to go back on my Christmas rotation. I haven't seen it since 2005 or whatever, 2004 or 2005. Rewatching it, I'm like, this is going back in my Christmas rotation. Next time my wife wants to watch Christmas with the Cranks, I'm going to say, no, that movie's bad. We need to watch a good movie. We're going to watch Surviving Christmas.
There you go. Yeah, it's kind of like the Planes, Trains, Automobiles thing of like the two guys who like at first don't really get along. You pair them up together. You put them in this interesting circumstance where they kind of have to work together, and then they learn to love each other, kind of. And I'll admit I'm probably lowest on it of the three. And I don't know Chad's thoughts on it, but I know Chad's just such a big Christmas guy. This is only my first watch, and I didn't think it was amazing. I think, honestly, I had it hyped up because it was hyped down to then now be like, it's okay. Like, I don't think it's like a masterpiece or anything, but like, I do think it's solid, especially considering the other films it's up against here. Like, I think it's a solid film, and I think a lot of it has to do with the chemistry between all the actors. Because I do think the script itself, like, if you give it to a different set of actors, may not be as strong. You know, it's a little, it hits some cliches. I think the ending of just kind of fizzling out, like, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of closure there at the end with the relationships, at least with him and with Ben Affleck and the family. It's more Ben Affleck and the one girl, and then like the parents. But like, I would have just appreciated maybe just an extra scene or two at the end, just to kind of wrap things up with a maybe tidier little bow. But I agree. I think this is not a bad movie. This, especially for Razzies, like, When I think of Razzies, I think of like, this has to be an abomination, or like just something very like almost meme worthy, like Alexander, haha, the accents, Catwoman, how ridiculous, Superbabies, whoa, I'm on an acid trip. This one, it's like, why is this the one that they're like, especially looking at the other nominations, it doesn't get a lot of other nominations either. So like, it was just a weird choice that this is what they also decided to dunk that year. You know,
it was it was completely a Ben Affleck thing. It was the backlash from Ben Affleck. I will say that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I was just going to say.
I just want to clarify that. I mean, on my Letterboxd, it got a 3 stars. Like, it's not like I think this is an incredible movie. It's just one I really enjoy watching. That's and not for the reasons I normally really enjoy watching movies on this show. Like, I enjoy it. Like, it makes me laugh. Yes, go on. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, I think also, like, for me personally, he was notably, I think, the weakest of the 4 leads. I think the other 3 are just a little stronger than him in it. But I think that's also
he's playing the fool, though. That's
right.
the thing. I think people judge the fool in a comedy too harshly. Sometimes they get praise. Sometimes they're like, "What was he even doing?" Well, he was doing what he was supposed to do in this movie.
It's kind of like the criticisms you see with a lot of Adam Sandler movies, or like Elf, where it's like the man child. But I think it works better in some cases than others. But like that, yeah, you're right. It's like an example of that. The kind of child in a man's body, like he didn't get to really do proper maturing, and he's a little goofy, a little out of whack. Some people have had reads that he's actually mentally, he's got a mental disability, which may be the case. But if that's the case, I think it is a little like I don't think that's a good.
I don't think the movie alludes to that.
Yeah, I wouldn't go by that theory, but some people have that. I don't know. But Chad, as a Christmas fiend, is as you like to be known around the holidays. I know it's Christmas in August. It was supposed to be Christmas in July. But what are your thoughts on this one? Had you seen this one before?
I actually have not. Okay. There are still some gaps in my Christmas watching. But I will say, since I adore Christmas just as a holiday, and just as a state of being in a frame of mind, it's one of those things to where Christmas music, Christmas movies, Christmas shows, episodes of shows or whatever, it's my biggest like thing where even if it's bad, if it's kind of Christmas, I can forgive it for being bad, and I just will enjoy it anyways. There's so many examples of that where I go, it's Christmas, so I don't really care. So I totally get like the people who go and like their Christmas watch is just all the Hallmark Christmas movies, and they're like, yeah, they're all the same, but I love this shit. So I totally get that, even though I'm not on that level yet. I haven't gone down that path, but there are so many that I'm just like, you guys are like trashing on this movie, but it's Christmas, so who cares about if it's bad or good or whatever. This movie in particular, I just think the concept is very weird. Like Ben Affleck is essentially holding this family hostage, not literally, but with like money. He's like, your Christmas is going to be kind of weird, and I'm going to be very weird and kind of the problematic guy, just, in your family that you don't want there, but you're going to do it for the money. And I don't know if like the, emotional stuff like ever like really comes around and actually makes that like a legitimate like okay premise anymore, and it never really feels that Christmassy to me, although maybe when I'm watching it around December time, if I decide to revisit it and give it another chance, I'll like it more, because I'm sort of in the middle. I don't know, I can't remember how you if you liked it really at all, Dylan, but I know
I did. I don't think I would say it was a good, like a great movie, but I don't think it was a bad movie either. But it's definitely more enjoyable for me than like everything we've talked. Well, not everything we talked about, but like of the 2 good movies we've talked about so far, this and Alexander being like the ones that aren't like bad. I definitely watch this over in terms of enjoyability.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I think I'm more on your level than Matt's, but I could totally see myself getting on Matt's level.
Literally what I'm saying.
But
it's not a great movie. It's just a good movie. Like that's
the thing about it, though, is that I feel like, because I talked about him taking the family hostage, there is a better movie about that called The Ref. That's
The Ref
actually a
is
fantastic
great
movie. So
Here's-
where he literally takes them hostage, and there's a lot of emotion, a lot of really good Christmas stuff in it. And so like when I compare,
You do have to watch Kevin Spacey if you want to watch that movie, unfortunately. But,
True.
I don't mind Kevin Spacey in the movie, as in a lot of movies. Unfortunately, I do not care about the actor, of course, or the person. But they're it's fine. But yeah, it is really interesting to see a lot of these different actors. I mean, Catherine O'Hara's watchable in pretty much anything. She's fantastic. Right. One of the jokes in the movie I'll reveal a little bit later. You
want to reveal it now, or for later when we talk about like our best lines and stuff?
Well, sort of, yeah.
Okay, yeah, and
we're
that's the thing.
We're not doing lines, so you can do it now.
Okay, you can say it now. Yeah.
Well, no, it's not a line, but it's like you'll see it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well,
so it's going to be in conversation with maybe some actors we'll talk about later, possibly.
Maybe something like that.
Maybe. Yeah, like yeah, you're right, Matt. We are kind of saying the same thing. Like it's good, not great, but like I'm not even at the like I still gave it a negative review, but it's not like this is an atrocity, Razzie worthy. So, but I wouldn't even call it bad. That's the thing. It's like, yeah, I just think it's we all like it. We all like it. I think that's what matters. It's great. I think you just like it more also because you've been with it longer and have the love and nostalgia built for it too. But I think one talking point which we haven't really talked about, and maybe because we're gonna maybe save him for later, but James Gandolfini I think is just so good, and it's like he's just doing Tony Soprano here, but it works, because Ben Affleck is so kooky and off the walls, and I know I just said I don't really like Ben Affleck in this movie at all, but I think James Gandolfini, because he's so playing it so what's the word I'm looking for, like straight, yeah, it honestly makes Ben Affleck's performance better. Like I think if you don't have a James Gandolfini like that, like I would have liked Ben Affleck's role even less, but I think James Gandolfini really equalizes it well, almost in like a John Candy, Steve Martin kind of way in that film too. Like that's the comparison they kept bringing up because it's like the kind of odd coupleness of it. But I mean, the poster says it all. Ben Affleck just like hugging James Gandolfini. Like I love James Gandolfini in this movie. He's such a mood because all it takes is just money. And honestly, if I was in that perspective, I was like housing a guy for one winter, like whatever, give me that money. That amount of money, I was like, sure, whatever. I know it's like, you're holding him hostage, whatever. But if it's that much money in that case scenario, and you're an old grump like Tony Soprano, like James Gandolfini, I was like, you know what, I would take the money. I don't know.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say I got really excited just because you're talking about that dynamic, as the perfect like dynamic that matches that one with James Gandolfini and Ben Affleck is Richard Dreyfuss and Bill Murray and What About Bob?
Yes.
Another one. Yeah,
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
You are making the argument for why Ben Affleck's performance is actually good for me, Dylan, because that's the whole point I was making, was that like Ben Affleck's playing the fool, James Gandolfini's playing the straight man, and that's the dynamic. Right. And Ben Affleck, by definition, has to be going much higher than Gandolfini. And I think that improves. When you consider it, that improves Gandolfini's performance as well, just because
that's fair.
Like it's similar to the Tommy Lee Jones, even though I love Batman Forever, Tommy Lee Jones and Jim Carrey, where Tommy Lee Jones is supposed to be the straight man, but he's trying to be the funny man in that. He's trying to be the fool in that movie, and that's where that dynamic doesn't work quite as well. Gandolfini continuing to play it straight, although he has some of the funniest lines in there for me. Every time he calls doo-dah doo-doo makes me laugh. Just the whole concept of doo-dah makes me laugh as well.
Because it's all the line deliveries are still that straight delivery, which is so good. Like, he's the master. Like Tony Soprano's a funny role. There's a lot of great humor in Sopranos. Like he does that comedy so well. And I'm doing it with my Italian hands. I'm like I'm illustrating it just like you would. Yeah.
So It's not a great movie. If I were giving a review in a newspaper or something, it might not be. I think it would still be kind of positive, but I could see where it could skew. Yeah. It's going to skew mixed. It's going to skew maybe,
but in the
more
context
negative,
of FRAMEWREck and these movies.
Well, it's not just that. It's that I can understand a negative review for this. I don't understand the idea that this is a bad movie, and that's my point. Is that like it is, to me, a funny movie. It's good. It's entertaining. And when I look at it, I go back to I love Roger Ebert. Roger Ebert's my favorite critic of all time. He's one of my favorite journalists of all time.
Yeah.
Reading his thoughts on film kind of helped shape me into the film lover I am today. I remember him saying that there are some 2-star movies that he would watch, that he would much rather watch than the 4-star movies movies that he gave 2 stars to, that if he given the choice, he would definitely watch instead of the movies he gave 4 stars to.
Yeah.
And that's I kind of get that. Like, this isn't a great movie, but it's a 2-star movie that I'm gonna 2 out of 4, mind you, but it's a 2-star movie that I'm probably gonna put on before I put on a perfect movie, and just because it's just entertaining me, and I'm excited for Christmas time to come around so I can watch it again.
Yeah, this is very far from Christmas, but like it's what people say about like Schindler's List. It's a bad example, but you know what I mean. Like, it's a 4-star film for most people. Like they see that, or the Roger Ebert 4-star, the Letterboxd 5-star. You know what I mean. But like everyone's like, yeah, it's a perfect movie. But like, I'm probably gonna watch Surviving Christmas more than I'm gonna watch Schindler's List, just because there's enjoyability is different, and like what you want to watch and in the mood to watch. Like, there's definitely movies that are like, okay, I got to sit down. Chad and I just covered 12 Years a Slave a few months ago on Picture This. It's like, it's the same thing. It's like some movies are perfect movies that you don't want to watch all the time because they're perfect and because they're very distinct, whereas some movies aren't as great by like rubric, like if you were to have a rubric scoring wise, but like you could easily put on, more easily just to put on, and that's why I think film is so subjective. And yeah, I mean, we all like this film, it seems like, and that's good, because it would have sucked if all the films were like really stinkers. But we might talk about another good film later, maybe not. Surviving Christmas survived the Razzies though with no wins. So I guess that's a good thing in Razzie standards. It was nominated for 3 though. It was nominated for Worst Picture, nominated for Worst Actor, Ben Affleck, which he shared with Jersey Girl. So he's nominated for that and Jersey Girl's 1 nomination, and then Worst Screenplay. But who was not competing against Ben Affleck for Worst Actor, because they were competing for a prize, but in the other category of Worst Actress were the Wayans brothers. And I know that sounds confusing, but that's how the Razzies work. And they were in a movie called White Chicks. We're going to end the conversation with White Chicks, or end this whole conversation with talking about White Chicks. Directed by Keenan Ivory Wayans, written by, there's a whole lot of them. Here we go. Xavier Cook, Andy McElfresh, Michael Anthony Snowden, Keenan Ivory Wayans, Marlon Wayans, and Sean Wayans. Story by Keenan Ivory Wayans, Marlon Wayans, and Sean Wayans. Cinematography by Stephen Bernstein. Edited by Jeffrey Stephen Gorson and Stuart Pape. Music by Teddy Castellucci. And starring the Wayans brothers, Sean Wayans and Marlon Wayans, Jamie King, Frankie Faison, Lachlan Monroe, John Hurd, and of course, Busy Phillips, Jennifer Carpenter, and Terry Crews. That's the list I got. So, White Chicks. Who's starting this one? Chad, we'll start back at you. What do you think of White Chicks?
Sure. White Chicks is a really interesting movie. It's hard to figure out if I actually like the movie, because in some ways I really do, and then some ways I really don't. I think it's a very watchable movie, and in context, this is the only movie out of the 5 that I saw in theaters and really liked when I first saw it. I thought it was really funny at that time, and then watching it today in today's lens, I don't think it ages very well. A lot of the jokes are kind of weird and problematic, and it's like a whole thing where it's like, okay, this is like the ultimate example of like, there's blackface, and then this is like now the reverse. Whiteface is like, it's definitely more okay to do that than the other thing. But is it good? Is it funny? I like, I recently watched Tropic Thunder, and I saw, with Robert Downey Jr. doing his satire, like
Mhm.
that is very, very funny to me, because it's not making fun of a thing. And this I didn't find offensive or anything like that, but I also just found it very, very scary. Like, it's
Well,
like their
yeah.
their faces look so unnerving and uncanny valley and weird.
I think that's the thing, is it's not that it's inappropriate, because
Yes.
this
Yeah.
is ultimately satire too. They're trying to
Yeah.
satirize white people, and like, it's a very clear commentary that they're trying to make, but it's the way they execute the makeup, which is just so freaky and so off-putting, and the prosthetics, and it's for me, it's the eyes. For me, it's the blue eyes. That's
Yes.
what gets me. It's like the rest of it, fine, but once those blue eyes kick in, it just
It's like a horror movie.
So I get that. I get that for sure.
But on the other end, like, I can see this as, so say that the faces and all of that stuff had looked better and not so campy and crazy, and it just looked more legitimate, kind of a deal. Maybe if they had just like painted their faces or something like that, rather than doing this whole weird latex thing. I think it works on kind of like a level with the story. Like, it's like a cop film where they got to do the whole thing. All the stuff they're doing makes sense why they're doing it. And I like a lot of the actresses in the movie. One of them, I'll say, I think her name's Busy Phillips.
Yeah.
I love her just in general, like from Freaks and Geeks
Freaks and Geeks.
stuff like that. And I think she's legitimately one of the better parts of the movie for sure. And I also love Jennifer Carpenter. But then some of the weird jokes, like the whole like idea of like she's like incredibly skinny, but she's got this like body dysmorphia where she like feels so weird about her own body that she does like this crazy look at me, I'm fat kind of a joke. And I'm like, some of that stuff just doesn't really hold up either. So I don't know. There's a lot of parts of this movie where I'm like, you know what? I don't think this movie's funny anymore. I think maybe in 2004 it was funnier then because of the type of sense of humor we had then. And then today I'm like, I don't know if it's actually funny anymore, except for a couple certain parts that I absolutely love, which I'll get to at some point.
Yeah, that's good. Matt.
I saw this in theater as well. And I didn't like it in 2004.
Okay.
I was younger, so
yeah, that's true. I didn't like it. I didn't like it much more. I didn't like it at all more this time either. I will say this. I'll put it in context a little bit too. I'm a huge fan of "Don't Be a Menace to South Central" while drinking juice in the hood, which is a Keenan Ivory Wayans, but it's a Wayans Brothers movie. Yeah. It's one that I used to watch all the time when I was a kid. Yes, a kid, despite how raunchy and weird that and R-rated, way R-rated that movie is. I used to watch it all the time as a kid. It's a movie I think is very funny. I think those two guys are very funny in that movie. I love the first scary movie. I actually like the first three scary movies, even though they didn't have anything to do with the third one. I like those movies as well. So when this one's coming out, I'm like, all right, another Wayans Brothers movie. Plus, they had the Wayans Brothers TV show, and I used to watch that as well. So I was all in on the Wayans Brothers. I watched in living color when back in the early 90s. Like, I was all in on the Wayans Brothers. And I had high expectations for this movie. And I did not enjoy it. And so I thought, I have a lot of friends who love this movie. And talk about it time and how funny it is. And I'm just like, maybe I'm missing it. I should revisit it. So I thought this time my expectations couldn't be lower than they were so high when I first watched it. It couldn't be lower. And I did not enjoy it anymore. I don't think I laughed one time watching this movie. I will say that I would have liked a movie, that first scene where they're just cops together. I would have loved a movie that expanded that aspect of it rather than what we got. I've long been a proponent of whatever the movie says is true in that reality. So the fact that they fooled everybody, despite how much I don't buy that, it's true in that reality. So I can't really hold it against this movie. It just is so hard to watch them do it. And that's really the thing. And it's nothing to do with being offended. I was never offended by this movie at all. I don't care if they do whiteface. I don't care if they do that. I just care that they made a movie that didn't make me laugh, that I did not enjoy almost at all, from people I really enjoyed before that day. So
wow. Well, this is my Surviving Christmas then, because I like this one. I think it's good. I really, the Surviving Christmas, I was on the okay camp, but this one I'm like firmly in the like, I think it's good. And I think it's also subjectivity, and I am not much younger, but I am watching this much later than it came out too. So I'm looking at it as something I expected to be more like, I honestly went into this being like, oh, it's probably racist, forgetting that it's black guys who made the film about commenting on white culture. I'm like, it's the opposite. If anything, it's a great satire. So it's just in my brain. I was like, oh, it's like it deals with race, so it's probably dated in that respect. But I don't think that's it. I think some of the humor is dated in terms of gender, for sure, for women versus men humor. Some of that is dated, but I think the overall racial humor is actually kind of still poignant. Like, I think it actually has something to say in terms of like just race in general, and I just think it's funny, kind of how you talked about the suspension of disbelief, Matt. Like the whole like, how do they not realize that they're very clearly not those girls? I think that adds to the humor for me, where I'm just like, how the fuck? Like, it's because they look so ridiculous. And I do agree, Chad. Like, they are scary. Like, I don't like looking at them. And I think that's what kind of aids into the so bad it's goodness almost, where I'm just like, this is so ridiculous and crazy. But I think they find moments for where I'm actually like, wow, okay, like there's actually something here. I think there's like an actual like moral to take away from it. I think there's actual relationships that have some sort of stakes, and the comedic relief. And I'll just say right now, one of my favorite performances of this slate, Terry Crews, cracks me up every time. He is so funny, because I've been watching him the past few years on America's Got Talent, which is his family show where he's just like very smiley and everyone's so great and you all are so talented, that I forget that he can kind of be like raunchy and silly like this. And it was nice to see, because his character is so balls to the wall crazy too. Like, it's a crazy movie. It is, and it's kind of one of those things where like, exactly what Matt was saying with Surviving Christmas. It's like, if I was writing for this newspaper, I wouldn't say like, this is one of the best of the year, but also like when looking at it in the context of other films and seeing that it's considered a bad film, it makes me kind of look at it more like, no, it's like, I enjoy this. Which I didn't expect to, honestly. I expected to loathe this. And I watched this at a really dark week where I was dealing with a lot of shit. So this honestly was like, I did laugh, and it's all subjective, so like it's not gonna land for everyone. But I did find it funny, and I needed that laughter, and I think that's also why for me I kind of like it a little more. I think is because I just had it just came at the right time, So I'm
legitimately.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
I'm legitimately glad that you. I'm legitimately glad you enjoyed it and that they made you laugh. Mm-hmm. I will say this. It does not belong in the worst films of 2004. It does not belong on this list, despite how I don't enjoy it. This movie and Surviving Christmas don't belong on this list.
Yeah,
for me.
Well, looking at the Razzies of it all, it's probably because, like what Chad was saying at the very beginning, it's like they find one thing that they want to dunk on. Like, this feels like, oh, ha ha ha, they look so crazy. Look how ridiculous they look in that makeup. Ha ha, worst of the year. Like,
remember what I said at the beginning about how they've got a bad history regarding race and gender, like absolutely. Racism and sexism. I think that has a little bit to do with this. I think if this had, I think a different movie that wasn't made by black people making fun of white people probably wouldn't have been.
Or if it was like a Spike Lee movie where there was like more prestige behind it. If Spike Lee made this movie, it would honestly probably be really good, but it would also be like totally different vibes and different humor. Yeah. But it would never have been like worst movie of the year, because it's like a big studio comedy made by these guys who make these silly, scary movies. Like, I totally see why they felt the need to dunk on it, but Chad.
Well, if you do want to see a great, I think it's great satire about blackface, check out Bamboozled by Spike Lee, which I think is pretty great. I'm definitely more in the Dylan camp. I don't think this is fantastic. I think this is the most watchable movie of the slate, because it's one of those where it's like it feels like a standard early 2000s movie, and
Right.
some of it is so weird. Don't get me wrong, and Dylan even acknowledged that some of it's so weird, but I feel like there is a lot of like really good like emotional stuff that I didn't even think Surviving Christmas really had a lot of that, like even emotional stuff that I was kind of like wanting. Like if you at least have that, I think you can connect to it a little bit more. And I think that's where, not with Marlon Wayans and Sean Williams in the movie, but with like the women characters that they're trying to connect with, like Busy Phillips and Jennifer Carpenter, and those people I thought had some really good stuff, especially Busy Phillips, like going and having her whole arc of not pining after this guy and stuff like that. Some of it I think was actually pretty well. So
I would
yeah.
say my favorite scene is them in the fitting room trying to fit on the clothes. It's just the funniest thing for me. I get a kick out of that. I don't know why. I really don't know why.
Trying to
But
squeeze into those
yeah,
pants.
it's just so fun. It's so freaking funny. I don't know why. I get a kick.
I feel the opposite on that. Like, I didn't feel any emotional weight in this movie, and I do feel it in Surviving Christmas. So that's just, I mean, it's down to perspective.
But I think we all agree though that those are, well, maybe not, but like between the three of us, those two seem to be the ones that were like they shouldn't be in the lineup. And we have both said that. Also
Right.
that.
We got rankings coming up, don't we?
Yeah, we do. So we will. Whereas like, yeah, we'll talk about it all later. But White Chicks has some of the best needle drops as well. I just want to bring up like the whole 1,000 miles. That's a great gag, I think. The whole joke that like all the white people sing along to it. But then Terry Crews also knows all the words. But it's got some great stuff on the soundtrack. I mean, MC Hammer, Beach Boys, Beyonce, Run DMC, Maroon 5. I mean, it's got a great like early 2000s kind of playlist. Not Beach Boys is not early
Maroon
2000s,
5,
but you know what I mean. Yeah, like Benny Benassi, Black Eyed Peas, Cyndi Lauper. Yeah, there's so much good stuff on the soundtrack too that it's like very 2000s. So but it is comedy, and comedy is subjective, and that's this is probably the most straightforward, just like comedy. Where Surviving Christmas is kind of like a comedy, drama, family film. And then Alexander's very much more just drama, Oscar bait. Catwoman's the superhero action, then Superbabies is whatever that it is in terms
family
of
film
genre. You can't really, I guess it's also an action film, kind of a horror film. Superbabies is all the genres. But any last words on the White Chicks? Cool. White Chicks nominated for 5. Oh, Matt, did you have one more thing?
No, I said no.
Okay. White Chicks nominated for 5. Doesn't win any. As I said, Catwoman and Fahrenheit 9/11 just swept. Worst picture, worst actress for Sean and Marlon Wayans. They're both up for Best Actress. It's a very Adam Sandler, Jack and Jill type thing. Worst screen couple, the Wayans brothers. Interesting. Also in quotes, the Wayans sisters. All right. Worst director, Keenan Ivory Wayans, and then worst screenplay. Again, kind of playing with the whole gender thing that Matt was talking about, where they just seem to dunk on the whole like, aha, isn't it funny if we nominate them for, like, who cares? So those are the 5 films of the discussion. Now, Matt, let's have you segue us to what happens now.
Now we're gonna talk about our superlatives. We're gonna do it in we're gonna do it in picture this style. We're gonna talk about the best actor. And actor is not a non-gender term here.
Right.
Best actor of these movies. We're going to talk about the worst actor of these movies, and then we're also going to talk about our FRAMEWRECK movie or FRAMEWRECK moment, Trainwreck moment out of all of these movies. So
should we rank them first, or do you want to?
I don't know. How do you guys usually?
We
do
usually rank them after we talk about them. So
okay. We can. For some reason, I thought that was last. So yeah,
but how are we ranking them
first.
against? We're ranking them just in terms of enjoyment. From, in this case, most enjoyment at 5 to least enjoyment at 1, right? Like
yes.
The one we think is just the worst is at 1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yes. We're going from best to worst.
5 is our favorite.
5 is favorite to worst is.
And based on your own scale of whatever qualifies.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Chad, you're the guest. What would you put at number 5?
Number 5 as my favorite of the slate is White Chicks.
All right, Matt.
I don't think it's a surprise that it is Surviving Christmas.
All right, my number 5 is also White Chicks. Chad, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is Surviving Christmas.
Matt, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is White Chicks.
Okay, and my number 4 is Surviving Christmas. So yeah,
Nice.
I didn't want to make that generalization earlier. I was about to say like we can agree these are the 2 best movies of the slate, but then I caught myself because I was like, honestly, I don't know if Matt would put something above White Chicks, but
I think that I would predict that one of the cuts of Alexander is probably better than these movies, in my opinion. But of what we got, this
Cool.
is these are
all right. Chad, what's your number 3?
Superbabies, Baby Geniuses 2.
All right, Matt, what is your number 3?
Alexander.
Yeah, my number 3 is Alexander. Chad, what is your number 2?
Alexander.
Okay, Matt, what is your number 2?
Catwoman.
My number 2 is also Catwoman, which means Chad, your worst film is
Catwoman.
And Matt and I's worst film. Matt, say it.
Superbabies 2. No, wait. Superbabies, Baby Geniuses 2.
There you go. This is a very interesting predicament because Superbabies 2 was Chad's number 3 and our number 1, so that's a total score of 5. Whereas
wow.
Matt and Dylan put Catwoman at 2, and Chad put it at 1, which means it's a score of 5. Which means, and you know what? Because this is the first crossover, and I don't feel like one of those should win out over the other. We're going to say that the worst picture between the both of us is a tie between Catwoman and Superbabies, Baby Geniuses 2. It wouldn't make sense to flip a coin because that's no fun when we're talking about worst films because, you know, they're both bad. We both got to put them on the pedestal. But, yeah, Superbabies 2 for me was just like the most hodgepodge of atrocities. Whereas like Catwoman, I found a little bit more to enjoy. But those two are like the so bad it's good for me, you know? So that's where my ranking kind of played into it. But they are bad. Yeah.
I think just because Superbabies 2 or Baby Geniuses 2 was just so balls to the wall, like what the fuck is going on, that I enjoyed it more from that standpoint. I don't think I'm on the same level as you guys on Catwoman. I think I just didn't enjoy that one at all. But I could see rewatching it with some of the things you guys have said and getting more enjoyment out of it.
So Superbabies 2 is like the most so bad it's good though for you.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. So that I got it.
Right
So
into
Matt,
What's that?
any explanations of your rankings or
No, I think I pretty much said it. White. I legitimately enjoy Surviving Christmas. White Chicks was higher on the list. You guys' conversation actually helped me bring it back down, and coming to the realization that those are probably the two on there that didn't deserve, brought it to number 4 for me because it was going to be number 3 or 2. I don't remember where I had it, but
we'll see. And we're all just kind of in the middle on Alexander. So now we can segue into the superlatives. So Matt, what do we want to start with? Do you want to start with the best or the worst?
Let's start with the best.
Yeah, I agree. And who's starting that off? Is it Chad?
I don't remember.
I think it's Chad.
Yes, Chad wanted to go first. Yes, that's right.
So I didn't talk about this person during the general discussion because I wanted to save it for this. My best actor of the slate is Terry Crews from White Chicks.
Nice.
Okay.
Because,
not damn it, because that was my backup, but I think Matt's going to take my number 1. So now I got to think of my number 3. But great pick.
Yes, because he is the only reason why I was excited about rewatching White Chicks, because it's the only thing of the slate, Terry Crews in that movie, that I constantly reference all the time. Dylan has been on my show on my channel, Chadwick Webb, where we rank things, where on pretty much every episode, my buddy James is on there, so Dylan knows James. We have a back and forth thing with Terry Crews and White Chicks, specifically the 1,000 Miles bit when he's like, how did you know? I love this song. And then he just starts singing it. And then when he gets to the so like we constantly will do that all the time. Like there has been times when we've been hanging out, that song would come on the radio and we would have to stop and do the at each other and stuff like that. So it's an inside joke between us And it's one thing that I think that Terry Crews in this movie knows exactly what he's in, and he's, just giving it his all. And where I kind of agree with a lot of what Matt was saying about, like, I don't think the humor in the movie works for me, like on as much as it did for Dylan, but Terry Crews specifically, I think, is like on just another level, making the movie funnier. And if I were to extract anything from the movie, it would be Terry Crews, his performance. He's just, and you can see it not in just White Chicks, but in everything else he's been in, like Brooklyn Nine-Nine and just all this other stuff. He is so funny that he just elevates this movie to another level for me, and I love him so much.
It's
just
great. It's great.
that one scene with the in the car, man. I mean, that I remember in the theater too. The theater erupted during that part with, "How did you know?" Best.
You're not going to get an argument from me, Terry. I love Terry Crews. What is it about 2004 that makes people look much older in 2004 than they do now? Because Terry Crews looks younger on Brooklyn Nine-Nine than he does in this movie. But I like him. I like Terry Crews. If anything, that part doesn't do it for me because it was also on the same screener with the Alexander thing, so I saw it.
You saw it?
I saw it so many times. So it doesn't
1,000
really
times.
Oh, I've watched that 1,000 times.
Yeah, love that.
But it's the best part of that movie. I will agree with that. I will say that this time watching it, there were some real social things that kept slipping into my mind, and if they hadn't, I would have enjoyed it more. But it felt a little. It's supposed to be predatory, and that's supposed to be funny. I just didn't find it as funny this time while watching it, where I'm like, the predatory thing kind of took me out of it a little bit. But he's still great.
And I'll tell you, with any other actor, though, it could have probably gotten it probably would have been a lot creepier. But I think because Terry Crews just somehow has this magnetic charm and charisma, it somehow makes it less creepy than it, because he is very pervy. I mean, he's trying to just hook up with this girl, and he doesn't know obviously who she is or what the context is, obviously. But it's it's very predatory, but it somehow works because it's him, or works better because it's him.
It works better. I will agree with that.
Yeah.
And I think in like 2004, this surprised so many people because we know Terry Crews now in like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, stuff like that. He's just known now. But then he's just like this big, like, muscular, like, black man. And I feel like no one expected him to just start singing that particular song. So I think that's why, especially back in 2004, it really hit.
He wasn't a wrestler. He was an NFL player. So he retired in '96. So people knew him as a football player. So that's even cooler, I think. Like
he did briefly wrestle, but he was he was known for a football player.
Matt, who's your pick?
My pick, Dylan. You're right. I'm going to take it. I forgot that I was in the middle because last time you were the center of the Chad Matt sandwich, and
I'll gladly go second if you want.
No, but now I remember that I get. So I had a backup, and I hope you pick my backup because I want that person represented. But I'm obviously going to go with James Gandolfini for all the reasons I mentioned earlier. He's so funny. He's such a good straight man, and a funny straight man is what you're looking for. You want someone who's not trying to get the laugh, but who gets it anyway, and that's a great straight man. That's why Dylan is a great straight man during our cold opens. I love a good funny straight man. And
I'm gonna start doing all the cold open bits as Tony Soprano now from now on.
Do it, yeah.
Hey, wait, man, when did you leave me out of the awards? It sounds a little more Trumpy now. Maybe.
Oh no!
I got to make sure I don't cross that bridge. But it's a lot of slurred words and a lot of that.
Hey, where's Doodoo?
Where's Doodoo? It's the shush sound. Yeah, it really gets you. You pass me the gabagool. Calm. Come here.
Yeah. So he's great. He's incredible in this role. He makes me laugh. Again, I've already said a lot of what I love about that movie, and a lot of it has to do with him. So, yes, someone else can talk.
I mean, I got to talk because it's my turn, but I don't know.
Well,
you know what? Yeah,
Can I
go ahead,
just say
Chad.
one
Yeah,
thing?
talk about James Gandolfini because he's the best.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the thing is the man could act. It's such a sad thing that we lost him when we did. You know, like it wasn't even that long after The Sopranos ended,
No, it's
and
2013. Yeah.
okay,
Not
so
long.
well, it was a little bit after, but
No, but
still,
it was
you know,
not
it just feels like he like ushered in like the next like kind of generation of like television, and so I just feel like he he did a few movies after that. I feel like this is a really great performance in a movie that might be okay or some people might not like, but I feel like just like Terry Crews elevates White Chicks, Gandolfini elevates Surviving Christmas. A great pick, Matt.
I'm going to go with another Surviving Christmas cast member because I think that's overall the best cast. But I did say earlier that the reason I don't think it's a good movie and I think it's an okay movie is because of Ben Affleck. So I'm not going to go Ben Affleck. Sorry, Matt, if that was your backup. But I'm going to go with Christina Applegate because I think she is... Sorry. I think she, though, is like a lot of that emotional core you need. I mean, obviously the stuff going on with James Gandolfini and Catherine O'Hara, but like I think for Ben Affleck's storyline, like aside from the relationship with Gandolfini and the family, like I think she's a big part of it too. And I love especially the scene where the girlfriend and her family do show up and she's got to kind of play, she's like, they're in and out of the house. It's kind of like that whole thing of like, oh, you can't see her. And then when she finally does start to like catch on and like kind of ruin things for him, I think it's great. I think she plays that well, the pettiness well, because I'd be petty in that scenario too. But we actually understand why that relationship, actually we should invest in it. She actually supplies a lot of the heart of that relationship, which I really like. I think she's good. I always like her in everything. She's not like outstanding in it, but I think she's solid, and I think she's a lot of the emotional investment for me. But Matt, what was your backup that you were gonna take? If not,
well, my backup with Catherine O'Hara because she's a national treasure and I love her with all my heart.
That would have been my probably number 4 or 5 as well. Yeah,
maybe the reason here is because I'm not a huge Christina Applegate fan. I like her in some things. I think she's great in Anchorman.
What a great year 2004 with her.
Yeah, no kidding. I like her in some things, but in general, I'm just not a huge fan. I think she's fine in this. I think that the things you said about her in this were true, and so I think that that's why this is a good pick. It's just not for me. Catherine O'Hara has something that would have put her above, but I get what you're saying, and I think it's a good pick.
Yeah, I'll also say Anchorman, a Razzie Award nomination, along with Along Came Polly. That's one of the movies Ben Stiller is listed for as a nomination for. He's nominated for Worst Actor for Along Came Polly, Anchorman, and Dodgeball, as well as Envy and Starsky and Hutch. I don't understand that nomination at all. Anyway, if I were to go with just overall performances that were nominated in general, though, not from this slate, I think Hilary Duff in A Cinderella Story did not deserve to be nominated for Worst Actress. I think she's great in that. Just saying. All right, so I get the first pick of the bad ones, right? Huh. Okay.
I'm so excited.
Because I already went with an actress from Catwoman for our show, I feel like to pick her twice, I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. So I'm gonna go with this is a very interesting one. David A. Kay. And that is the voice actor for Kahuna in Superbabies. David A. Kay. The middle initials A, the last name is K, K-A-Y-E. Because I don't blame the kids who are just acting because their voices aren't moving, their mouths aren't moving, they're just doing the motions. The emotions coming out of Kahuna's voice, every line is like this. Every line delivery is said like that. You know what? I'm totally doing the Razzie thing where I just put a kid up for Worst Actor. I feel like a shit person. But I'll be honest, I think it's what drags down that performance for me. It's just such a monotonish performance. And you know what? I won't even say it's his fault. I'll say it's the director's fault. I don't want to put Bob Clark under the bus for that, or whoever was working with the voice actors. The voice trainers of that film, I think did him a disservice. And now, you know what? No, he's an adult now. So I'm going to give it to him. I give him the heat. He's grown up. He can take the heat. David A. Kay is my pick for Worst Actor because I think his voice work, it's bad. It's just bad. The other kids at least have some fun inflections, but his is very monotonish, and every line is like this. So That's what I'm going with. I feel like a bad person, but that's what I'm going with.
No, he was born in 1988, so he was not a child when
so he was a
Baby
tween.
Jesus too.
Fine,
Yeah.
fair game. He's 10 years older than me. Fair game.
Yeah. Yeah, he's only 4 years younger than me, so he's fine.
Okay. He can take a little Dunkin' tonight. I'll buy him a gift card.
I think it's a good pick for worst actor, because you're right, that is the way that his voice goes, and knowing he was basically an adult when this happened. Like,
imagine being in the voice booth and doing that though. Like that's like, oh, now can you make it a little younger for me? Goo goo gaga, poor guy.
Yeah, I think it's a good pick. My pick is also. Did you want to say anything about that child he put up for worst actor?
Slander.
I mean, he's right. It's one of the. The acting of Superbabies is not one of the high points. So
that's correct. My worst actor is also going to come from Superbabies. I had a lot to choose from, and as much as I wanted to put up Jonathan Rhys-Meyers for that one line of dialogue, I can't, because he wasn't that bad throughout the rest of it. So for me, it's Jon Voight. Jon Voight, who has given us some incredible performances throughout his career, just went through this phase where he could only do villainous accents for like 10 years. And then we found out like he was a villain in real life, but then also like without the accent. But yeah, it's just a bad accent. It doesn't like, I think that, and I have this criticism a lot of comedy movies that go too over the top with all the characters. I think that you need a character to play it straight, and you needed this character to play it straight, and he just plays it too much like a cartoon. And if he had played it straighter, this might have been a better movie. There would have been a lot of problems beyond that, but he might have elevated it at least. But no, he helped keep this movie in the toilet. So
yeah,
that's my.
I won't argue with that. That's a good pick. I just love him so much from Mission Impossible. I couldn't break my own heart and pick him for this. But he is bad. He's bad in this. He's bad in this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I would say, like, I mean, I don't disagree. Like, if I were picking performances, from this movie to be worst, it probably would be him, just because, like, I would feel weird picking a child as I'm
never gonna live this down, guys. The roast hasn't happened yet. Y'all save your material.
But
that's happening later. That's not now.
But I do think, if you watch it from a like kind of so bad it's good perspective, then I could see his performance being more on the same level as a Batman 66, those types of villains, with like specifically like the Riddler in that movie. That's just like all the time. We're just like, holy
Frank
shit.
Gorshin.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I could see like on that level, or maybe a Tommy Lee Jones and Batman Forever type of deal, where it's like campy kind of a deal. So I could see it both ways a little bit there.
All right, Chad, who's your worst actor or actress in this slate?
Yeah, this one's hard because I feel like there are a lot, but I feel like the one that I was just like, what is this person even doing in this movie? They're not really like giving me anything, and I don't know. I picked Alex Borstein from Catwoman.
Oh,
I believe that was mine when we covered it the last time. That's why I didn't pick her. But of all these, I agree with you. She is
because
worse than Sharon Stone.
You picked Sharon Stone. I picked Alex last time. I think.
Yeah.
Because
I don't remember Sharon Stone from it, actually, to be honest.
Yeah,
but
she's like the main villain, but she's like I think the thing is she's very bland. Like you wouldn't remember her. I think, except for the rag doll throwing off the roof. That's great.
God.
Yeah, I think like Alex Borstein, like just like specifically like her in the hospital and stuff like that. It's just like, and I think because I actually sort of dug as much as you can in a movie like that. Halle Berry's performance, I think, like seeing them side by side, hers was just so not good. And I'm not saying she's a bad actress. Like, isn't she the
She's
the
Lois on Family
yeah,
Guy.
she's Lois on Family Guy.
She's
So
the
Marvelous
agent
Miss
in
Maisel.
Marvelous Miss Maisel. Yeah, she's great. I mean,
yeah,
she's amazing.
so she's
Peter.
I forgot she's actually in a show that's like really well received.
She's Emmy nominated every year for it. Yeah,
That's okay. Wow. So that even goes to show that she wasn't directed well by Pitoff. And
well, I mean, like, I'm just gonna rattle off names of nominees this year for other movies, but like these are some of the best actors ever: Ben Affleck, Colin Farrell, Ben Stiller, Halle Berry, Angelina Jolie, Val Kilmer, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jennifer Lopez. I mean, Carmen Electra, maybe not. But those are all nominees that year. Like that's I think telling that you can have a. I mean, Adam Sandler, one of your favorites, Chad, nominated for a lot of Razzies. So I think it just depends on the movie and the way the Razzies respond to it. And yeah, but she's not a bad actress. But I agree that's probably her worst moment in her career is that film. It's bad. Chad rhymes with mad, sad, bad, glad. That's her. That's her line.
And I mean, we both of our bad actors are award-winning, award-nominated. I mean, Jon Voight is a Oscar nominee. I don't think he's won. Did he win? Oh, yes, he won. He won.
He did.
He won an Oscar
for Midnight Cowboy.
No, he didn't win for Midnight Cowboy, or he might have.
Deliverance? No, not Deliverance. That was
Coming Home in 1979 or 78, 79. Yeah.
Oh, he beat Roy Scheider for All That Jazz. Interesting. Yeah. So that's the picks. It looks like. Is there any other superlatives we need to touch on? The FRAMEWRECK moment, right, Matt?
Oh yes, FRAMEWRECK moment.
Cool. So are we cycling just back in the same order, snaking it, or?
Yeah, I don't.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so Chad, take it away. What is the worst moment or the most FRAMEWRECK moment of these 5 films?
So I'm trying to figure out: is this like the so bad it's good moment, or just a really bad moment?
This is the train wreck. This is the moment. This is like a train wreck. It's the one that if you were driving by, you wouldn't be able to not look at. That's how bad it is. That's how because of how bad it is. Like yeah.
Then I would say it's a scene from the one that I picked for my favorite, White Chicks.
Oh.
And I would say it's the very beginning of White Chicks, where I feel like if you're gonna hate the movie, it's this scene you're gonna probably be like, yeah, I'm gonna hate this movie. It's when they're in the convenience store posing as I don't know what are the just Hispanic gentlemen that own a convenience store. Puerto Rican.
They're trying to do like the Coming to America thing with the barbershop, but it's much more
tasteless. And it's super problematic to me. And I'm just like, I don't know, just the accents they're doing, the faces that they're doing. It's almost like where it's like, well, I mean, you can do it for white people because it's okay to do that. But it feels like punching down to, it doesn't feel like just because, a minority can't do that to another minority is what I'm trying to say. And it's okay to me. Mm-hmm. I just feel like it's still problematic. And I'm just like, it's just making fun of an entire other race. And it's just not funny. And so I'm like, if someone's going to hate it, I feel like that's the train wreck moment that they'll be like, I'm not going to like this movie. For me, it doesn't ruin the movie for me, but that scene, I'm just like,
I would like to mention that I did say that was the scene I wish the rest of the movie had been like.
Oh, really?
But I mentioned that earlier. I was like, that first scene, I wish the rest of the movie had gone in that direction. I forgot about the racism part. It's been so long because I watched it back when we were going to record it the first time, and so I forgot about the whole racism bit there. So
you like it for the buddy cop feel, not for the racism bit. Yeah,
yes, exactly. I don't mind the costumes, but like the costumes are fine if you're going undercover, but it takes a weird turn. Anyway, so that's a good pick. I want to pick a scene that I haven't picked before, even though there is a scene in here, but I'm having trouble deciding not to. So I think that even though I want to pick the Jonathan Rhys Meyers Alexander be reasonable scene, I just can't get past how much just talking about the ragdoll scene made me laugh just now, just while we were talking about it earlier. And I feel like this is a best of situation. Like if we ranked our FRAMEWRECK moments, it would be just at the top. And so I can't let this moment go by where it has an opportunity to be the Trainwreck moment again and let it go by. So I have to go with the Sharon Stone falling and ragdolling for a little bit, and then that whole scene, it's so good.
This is interesting because, like, I feel like these movies I think of as collective wholes, whereas, like, Surviving Christmas, I don't think there's a scene that's like FRAMEWRECK, and I don't think there's really one in Alexander either. White Chicks, I think the cringiest moment is the one that Chad mentioned. So I'm between Catwoman and Superbabies, and I know we covered it already, but I can't not pick the iconic basketball scene. I don't even think we picked it last time, but watching it again this time, I was like, this is just so bad. It just kind of comes out of nowhere. There's this weird sexual tension. I mean, I guess I could have picked Angelina Jolie and Colin Farrell's little moment in Alexander, but like the sexual tensions here's off because there is none, but it's trying to have it. And all the cuts that Chad had mentioned earlier are all over the place in this. Like, it really is kind of the amalgamation of what is bad about the movie, but also why I think some people at least, like, do still want to go back and rewatch these scenes, because it's like, what? How do you mess this up so bad? And because it has really nothing to do with the movie at all. I think is another thing. But I think this is a slate where it's like very much like the collective wholes rather than the individual scenes, I think, stand out. But that is definitely my pick for now, because, you know, I was going to pick Alex Borstein and then I didn't, so I figured this is my Catwoman representation here for my superlatives.
Okay.
You like the basketball scene?
No, I don't. I don't like the basketball scene. I'm about to say something weird, and that is that the reason that you were talking about how you well, maybe I should have picked the scene from Alexander with the weird sexual tension between the mother and son, but you picked this one, and the reason is because that scene was kind of hot, and this one wasn't at all. Like,
right.
like they watch this scene, and it's supposed to make you want them to be together, but at no point do I don't care if they have sex. I don't want it, but like I kind of understand if Alexander is bang at that moment. I don't want it to happen, but I get it. This other one, it's like I mean, maybe they can go have coffee or something, but I don't really care what they do after this scene. As far as basketball scene, so I agree with you. Is what I'm saying.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, yeah, just the way she dribbles, like, how do you mess that up? Like, I don't know. She I think her mom is white and her dad's African American, and I heard once that someone else, not me, but someone else said like something along the lines of, "Oh, it looks like everything about her is black except for her basketball skills," which, you know, yeah, that was a cheap dig at her, but honestly, seeing her dribble that basketball, I kind of agree. I was like, wow, like that is not, you would think she would, I don't know. I don't want to get into that territory, but it was a black friend who said it. I don't want to, you know, spur racism into the world, but a black friend did say that. He's like, no, yeah. So yeah, there we go. Let me recap this because this is pretty hefty. Our best actors. Chad had Terry Crews for White Chicks. Matt had James Gandolfini for Surviving Christmas. I had Christina Applegate for Surviving Christmas. Our worst actors, Chad had Alex Borstein in Catwoman. Matt had John Voight in Superbabies, Baby Geniuses 2. I had David A.K. For Superbabies, Baby Jesus 2, The Child. And our FRAMEWRECK moments were the opening of White Chicks for Chad, the ragdoll fall to Splat in Catwoman for Matt, and then basketball for Dyl. And the worst picture, the worst FRAMEWRECK picture is a tie between Catwoman and Superbabies, Baby Geniuses 2. There you have it. Chad.
So I was kind of confused because I thought maybe we were gonna plan to do the with the FRAMEWRECK scale for each.
Yeah, why don't
Oh,
we
I forgot.
go through it? No, I was gonna say that's a good thing to do now. Now that we've like ranked it and kind of gotten that sort of way,
Okay.
let's hear the scale. I would love to hear yours, Chad, first because you're the newbie here. I want to hear what you got prepared for us for your FRAMEWRECK scales. And as for those listening for the first time, FRAMEWRECK scale is now our ranking. We ranked on enjoyability and our favorites, but our FRAMEWRECK scale is more so the so bad it's good. So if it gets a 5 out of 5, it's like so bad it's good. The Room. If it gets a 1, that might be like a Schindler's List, meaning it's not bad at all, or a I'm trying to think of an example, or a Battleship where it's not where it's
Battleship
bad,
where
but
it's not
even
good at all. Yeah.
yeah. So if it's not good at all or not bad at all, it's a 1. If it's so bad it's good, it's a 5. Anywhere else in between, kind of your own discretion, kind of your own scale. So Chad, I want to hear what do you got for your scales?
Okay, so if we're going down, I'll start with my number 5, which is White Chicks. I feel like that's kind of a 3 out of 5 Vanessa Carlton's.
Nice.
The reason for that is that I think it's good, but I also see a lot of parts where it's so bad that
But you
makes
enjoy
it
it.
also
Yeah.
kind of good.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, it's like right in the middle because like
Yeah.
the faces are so weird, but I also think it has some good stuff in it.
There you go.
Did you want me to keep going or did you
Yeah,
guys?
go ahead. Yeah, because we
Okay.
didn't prepare scales because we both forgot. But I know we talked so much about the scales with Chad, and that was an exciting part of him kind of exploring the so bad it's goodness. So I'm digging these.
And then so my okay, this was where the Surviving Christmas thing came into play. That was my number 4. You know, I had that one all wrong. I think this one is more of also a 3 out of no, let's say 2.5 out of 5 because I think it doesn't have anything that's like so weird like that, except for like kind of the plot itself is a little bit weird. I'll say 2 out of 5. Oh no, my mom is on porn websites.
Yes. Oh my god, we didn't even talk about that. That was wild.
That scene was so funny.
And the way he smashed the computer too. That if there's a FRAMEWRECK moment in that movie, it's that. It's the smashing of the computer.
It's so good. That's so funny.
Oh, it's great, but it's
okay.
like it's because it's ridiculous. No, I love it. I love it.
That was pretty great. But yeah, I think that one is on the verge of being a good movie. So I can't say it's so bad it's good. And then 3 was Superbabies, Baby Geniuses 2 for me. That one's a 4.5, maybe a 4 or 4.5 out of 5 because I do think it really approaches that, but it's 4.5 out of 5 bouncy boys.
Nice.
And yeah, it's almost there. It's not quite The Room, but it's it's very weird. And then Alexander was I think this one is a 2.5 out of 5 blonde wigs. And the reasoning for that is I just think it's on the verge of being so bad that it's bad.
Yeah.
And then Catwoman, I think I'm on the opposite of you guys with this one because this one was a 0.5 out of 5 P-tops.
Wow, nice.
Oh wow!
I just don't think
and
it's
half a name. That's funny.
Because I don't think it's very watchable at all. So
there you go.
Wow.
But hey, I do want to say, and I know we're gonna wrap it up soon, but I just want to say, I know Chad, this whole like so bad it's good concept was a little at first to grasp, like it's something to think about, because like Matt has grown up so much with like the bad movies, and like I've kind of just been up and dipping my toe in the past few years. But for you to come on and like kind of embrace it and to do those scales at the end and kind of just determine for yourself at least what makes something good or so bad it's good, and to admit that White Chicks was your favorite, but also for some of the reasons why it's also ridiculous and bad. Like I'm kind of glad there was a kind of like a breakthrough there, and I appreciate you at least like giving it a shot and trying to see these from a FRAMEWRECK lens instead of just like this was bad or this was good. Like it was cool to see you kind of like see a little bit more like the in-betweens, which is really fun, which we were always trying to get on the show, but it was really cool hearing your thoughts, and I appreciate you being up for the challenge and doing that for us. That was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely a great concept. I'd love to do more down the line.
Especially
if we can
this
find,
format. Yeah, like
I'm not
Razzie.
sure if we would do it like every year, another
no.
show or anything like that.
I think we'd all be miserable because there's some years where it's just all bad.
But if
It's
we
just
could
garbage, like not even good garbage.
exactly. But if we could just find like certain years that we would go, you know what? I want to watch all those movies for different reasons, whether it's a defense of certain movies or those movies are so bad it's good. I would love to watch them and talk about them.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm into it.
Yeah. And I just also want to say, I didn't mention, I was going to say this for the end, the Raspberry Awards. This one is notable because it's the 25th. So they did like kind of a worst of first 25 years. They awarded 4 prizes: the worst musical, the worst comedy, the worst drama, and then the worst Razzie loser. The worst musical of the first 25 years of the Razzies was From Justin to Kelly, the 2003 movie musical with Kelly Clarkson and Justin Guarini, which I've never seen, but I love them both. So I might want to check that out. Maybe it'll taint my perspective. The worst comedy of the first 25 years was from the same year, which was Geely. Or Jiggly, I don't know how you pronounce
Geely.
it. Geely. The one that
Geely. Come on.
Matt mentioned earlier. I've never seen Geely.
But it's an
sorry.
Italian name.
It's I know, but like Jigglypuff is also a Pokemon name, and I'm a big Pokemon name. No, I know it's spelled Geely, not Jigglypuff. Not to be confused with Gigi, the Best Picture winner that Chad and I will cover on Picture This. Worst drama of the first 25 years was from 2000, Battlefield Earth. Never heard of it.
That makes sense.
Oh, really?
That's
That is Battlefield Earth. We've almost done several times because that is one of the that was one of the top 5 movies that when we were coming up with the show. I was like, we have to talk about Battlefield Earth.
Oh,
we're
cool.
going
So
to
we'll do it.
eventually. We just haven't gotten around to it.
Cool.
Yeah.
I was gonna say maybe we can consider 2003 because considering the worst comedy and musical from Justin to Kelly and Geely were both that year, might be worth thinking about. Also, the worst Razzie loser of the first 20 years, meaning the most nominations ever for a single actor. This may break all our hearts. I don't know. Arnold Schwarzenegger with 8 nominations and 1 win in 2004. Runner-up was Angelina Jolie with 7 nominations and 2 in 2004. I'll have to look back and see exactly what he was nominated for.
About to ask, yeah. Junior's probably one, but
yeah,
what the other 7?
Yeah, let me see if I can find this real quick.
I can't even
Saturn
think.
Awards,
I mean,
Emmy Awards.
Arnold's just like his own kind of actor. It's like he gives an Arnold performance, and you love it.
Yeah,
You just love it. I don't understand.
I would
Razzies.
guess Junior, Jingle All the Way, Around the World in 80 Days.
Love Jingle All the Way, though. What was that one?
Eraser.
Why is it not showing?
Was it like the 13th?
Because it's supporting
Man?
and
That
lead.
one?
I need to.
It's the 13th Day.
13th Day. End of Days. I like that movie, but
All right, I think I have. They're all spread out, so I'll try to scroll through them. Okay, the first one's 1982, Conan the Barbarian.
Okay.
Yeah, the next one is okay. The next one is 1997, Batman and Robin. 1999, End of Days. And then he got 3 for 2000 for The Sixth Day. 1 for worst actor, 1 for worst supporting actor as the clone, and then worst on-screen couple, him and himself. So that's only 3, 4, 5. Oh, he got 2 for Batman and Robin, I think.
Oh, all right. Well, never
I don't
mind.
know. I don't really know. Yeah, so like a lot of them were piled up. It seems. I don't know. I'll find the full list and I'll put them in the comments or something. But Matt, do you have any parting words for this long episode but very bountiful, plentiful episode?
Join us later this month. We have another episode of FRAMEWRECK coming to you. This was our July episode, so we have another episode of FRAMEWRECK where we are making up for June. Yeah, we're making up for our June episode. We're gonna have Chris Scott Baker back on. Baker Scott. Oh, I get it wrong. Oh no, he's one of my best friends. Anyway, we're gonna have him back on to talk about Ben and Arthur, which is incredible and terrible, and I can't wait to watch it again.
It's worse than all 5 of these films, I'll tell you that.
It's the worst movie we've ever covered.
More enjoyable than all 5 of these films.
Yeah,
probably.
that's true. So we'll be back there. You can catch me on Letterboxd, Twitter, everywhere on the internet. MattmanXIII.
You mean X, Matt? You said Twitter. You mean X?
Oh, did I say Twitter? You used to have the bird up there.
No.
so-
Say Twitter. No, that's a recurring gag with Kelsey and I on Marvelous Movie Mondays too. We're refusing to say X. It's Twitter. It's always gonna be Twitter. The
Okay.
birdie's staying. The birdie's staying, and I'll flip a bird to the owner of X later.
Twixter.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So
And-
it's Join me. Join us later this month.
Cool. Yep. You can find me Dylan_Randazzo Twitter and or Letterboxd, Dyl Pickle Movie Network on YouTube, and the Dyl Pickle Movie Network TikTok is now up and running, and these guys are going to be on it a lot. I've been doing daily movie games. It's been fun. Chad, where can they find you?
Well, first off, before I say that, I did want to do a quick FRAMEWRECK recommendation. I'm not sure if you guys even considered this.
Ooh.
Maybe not. Maybe it won't even work for your show. But since you did Face Off, I think another one of the same ilk would be Armageddon.
Ooh. That would be fun.
I would-
It's been considered. You've never seen it, Dylan?
It came out the year I was born. All right.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. I don't know if we'll do it on this show, but Armageddon and Deep Impact came out the same year. I think our other special.
We could
show-
do a double. We
Yeah.
could do a double feature. That'd be a good idea.
We need to figure out a name for that.
I
show,
know.
though,
I know
if we're
the
gonna do
song.
another-
I love the song.
The song is one of my favorite songs of all time, and that's kind of why I want to revisit the movie. Is because I feel like it's an underappreciated movie.
'Cause I miss you, babe, and I
But-
don't wanna miss a thing. Sorry.
You can find no, I get it. I've been singing it all weekend. But
Keep going. I'm gonna underscore it. Keep going.
sure. So you can find me on Picture This on the same network here. So if you don't know about it, check out that show because it's fantastic.
Yeah. Check out 1989. We did it with Matt.
And we're doing 1950 this month. So excited. Check
featuring
out
Matt's favorite director.
Check out the Matt episode. He won an award for it, so that was pretty great.
Yes, that's right. Wait, what award did he win again? Voice. What award did he win?
And the winner for best guest host of all time
Great voice.
is Matt Chapmond.
You can also find me over at the Nerd Entertainment Network, where we called "Welcome to Primetime" is the show from a Freddy Krueger movie, where we talk about horror. We rank Buffy episodes, and we've recently been doing a bracket, kind of a bracket style show, where we're trying to find out what is the best movie ever made by going through each decade and finding out each one of those. So far, the winners have been, I'll just spoil it. The Invisible Man won our 2020s. The 2010s was Dr. Sleep. And then the 2000s was Shaun of the Dead. So
you said best horror movie, right?
Yeah, it's all horror.
Okay.
Gotcha,
All horror based.
Gotcha.
so
Even
yeah,
then, though,
we're
the great
we're
picks.
trying
I
to
mean,
find
those
the
are good picks, but I mean, I was
Trying
like,
to-
I thought you meant
horror
movie.
movie, yeah.
Gotcha.
No,
the
Horror's-
decade of the 2010s. It was such a good decade that I was just,
Yeah. And then just check out my Letterboxd, Chadwick Webb, and then check out Clear Eyes Full Heart Reviews.wordpress.com, where I just try to review stuff. So yep.
Cool.
Thank you guys. This
Yeah.
was amazing.
Yeah, thank you for doing this. As always, it's so much fun to see like these crossovers happening. We're gonna have Kelsey on Recipe for Reality soon to talk about Bachelor. Matt has been watching Big Brother. I know Chad. We're gonna have do some Marvel stuff eventually. Matt wants to do Howard the Duck, I think, with Kelsey eventually. Like it's so much great crossover happening, which is so nice. Howard the Duck who made an appearance in today's intro and outro, which I will play in just a second. But thank you all so much for watching, and stay tuned for after the outro for a blooper reel of me messing up the guy who played Slinky Dog and the director of Christmas Story. That'll be at the end, a blooper reel. I'm not putting it in the middle. It's gonna be at the end. So stay tuned for that. We'll see y'all next time. Thanks, guys.
The Iceman cometh.
You're tearing me apart, Lisa!
Oh, this is sad. Directed by Bob Clark.
Oh.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Slinky Dog. But there's a tragic story behind it, which I will get to in a sec. Very sad, as I said. The final film Bob Clark directed before his death 3 years later. So he went out with the absolute worst thing of his career, and then sadly passed away. And then they had to, of course, recast him for Toy Story 3. But Bob Clark, a very renowned director.
Bob Clark is not Blake Clark.
Oh my gosh,
You're
I'm
confusing
so sorry.
him.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. But Blake Clark also passed away, right?
I don't think he did. No,
Oh,
I think
no,
he's still alive.
I'm totally off.
You're thinking of Jim Varney, who played Slinky Dog.
Yes.
Oh my god,
passed away
Blake
of
Clark is
cancer.
the new Slinky. Oh my gosh, wait, I gotta go back.
And he's still alive. Yes.
I'm gonna go back to my very first thing because I was the whole time I thought Bob Clark was Blake Clark, and I thought Blake Clark was
Bob Clark. is the
You have me on
director
Bob
of-
Clark's IMDb right now going, when did he fucking play Slinky Dog? Because that was Jim Varney. That was Ernest. You know what I mean, Vern? That's what
Yes.
it is.
So
Bob
in my
Clark
brain,
is the classic director of Black
Christmas
Christmas
and
and A
Christmas
Christmas Story.
I know that. But
Yo, I know.
yeah, Bob Clark, I read in my brain as Blake Clark, and I know Blake Clark is Slinky. But then in my brain, I thought, well, if he died in 2007, that means he was the first Slinky, right? But then I realized Anyway, I'm gonna start over. That'll be in the very end as like a blooper. Okay.
Okay.
Superbabies